the forum. It's May 11th, 2020. I just want to note that this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chair. We do know that there is press recording the meeting tonight, and there may be pictures taken during the process. So again, I just want to welcome everybody to the May 11th Chatham Board of Selectmen COVID-19 virtual forum. We are living in uncertain times, and we've been faced with some pretty complex issues that we need to address. And so in preparation for lifting of the state's COVID-19 stay-at-home advisory and closure order for non-essential businesses, we wanted to hear from the community on how best to balance public health and vital economic concerns heading into the summer season. Among some of the decisions we'll need to make in the coming weeks is to postpone, cancel, or hold some of our town's more beloved events. What we know is people's health and their livelihoods are at stake, both equally. So this is something we're going to try to balance out as we go forward. We are seeking feedback from the community tonight. The board is here to listen. We're not going to make any decisions tonight. We're not going to respond to any questions or provide any final answers. We'll be doing those in the upcoming weeks. We understand that this process can evoke some strong emotions. And that's why we've asked Pierce Cote to assist us, particularly Chatham's own Brad Schiff, who is president of Pierce Cote, and which is a communications company on the Cape. Brad is also a Chatham resident and a committee volunteer who was a member and facilitated the Chatham 365 Task Force public forums. He will be facilitating the meeting tonight, and following the meeting, the board will come back after the forum for final comments. But until then, I need to roll call my Board of Selectmen. So I will do that now. Corey Metters.
Here.
Jeff Dykins.
Shireen, he is present.
Okay, thank you. Dean Nicastro.
Here.
Dean Nicastro. He is present too, but apparently Dean.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter Kokolis.
Here.
And I'm Shireen Davis, the chair of the Board of Selectmen. So with no further ado, Brad Schiff, thank you and welcome.
Well, thank you, Shireen, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Chatham COVID-19 Community Forum. Now, we want this forum to be a productive session for all Chatham stakeholders, those who are going to actively participate, providing their feedback tonight, those viewing on Channel 18 or on YouTube, and for those in our town government. Now, in order to ensure that we provide a framework to express your concerns and ideas for the upcoming summer season, we've developed 5 questions which will help keep the session focused. The questions have been developed to be general enough so that they pertain to everyone who's listening tonight, but yet specific to help facilitate in gathering and categorizing the information in separate buckets. Each question will appear on screen tonight when it's first posed. Now, those questions are, and I'll read them. Number 1, how do we handle large public gatherings? Number 2, how can we establish a consistent set of guidelines for safety? Number 3, how do businesses and nonprofits operate effectively and safely? Number 4, how do we ensure there is a clear understanding and enforcement of the established guidelines? And number 5, what else do we need to consider? With the time allotted this evening, we plan to spend a sufficient time on each question. So this is how you can participate this evening. First, you can follow the Zoom video conference link that is on the Chatham Town website to appear on screen. To make a comment, you use the hand raise function in order to participate. You will be muted until you are recognized to speak. If you would prefer not to appear on screen, you can certainly participate by using the call-in number and password that is listed on the Chatham Town website. The third option is to send your comments through the email, which has been specially set up for this event, which is communityforum@chatham-ma.gov. That's communityforum@chatham-ma.gov. Now, we promise to read as many of the emails during this session as we can. Again, as Shireen said, this is not a panel nor a question and answer session, but a great way in which to express your thoughts, concerns, and even your creative, out-of-the-box ideas for the upcoming summer season. So we need your help to make this session productive. We ask that you respond to that particular question only as we proceed, that you observe a 3-minute maximum, and limit your participation to just one question in the video conference so as to make sure that everyone who wants to have the opportunity to participate can. Please feel free, though, to email your concerns, ideas on any or all questions. Now, when you enter the forum to speak, please give your name and affiliation to Chatham, whether you're a resident, summer resident, work in a local business or nonprofit, or whatever else your affiliation is. That's going to really help us better understand your perspective. So with that, let's begin. Now, our first question is, how do we handle large public gatherings? You know, this summer, we've got a parade, band concert, fireworks planned, and large events scheduled throughout all the summer. You know, your comments may also concern large gatherings that take place on such as beaches or even foot traffic on Main Street. So let's start with an email that we've received. Shauna, would you please read one?
Sure, Brad. This is from Paula. It is essential to celebrate the season, celebrate our traditions, and celebrate that perhaps the worst is over. Band concerts and firework displays are manageable if everyone follows the rules and wears their mask. Further insurance can be provided by monitors who provide masks for those who have forgotten theirs. Those at risk or uncomfortable in any way can certainly opt out. This is, of course, barring further outbreaks.
Okay, well, thank you, Paula. Shauna, why don't you read another one as well? Shauna, why
Sure,
don't you
Brad.
read? Go ahead.
Yep, this one is from Jerry. He says social events in Chatham would encourage visitors to come and to act as though things were back to normal. This would attract virus carriers and ensure widespread infection, including to residents. The beaches should be kept closed and all events of more than 10 people should continue to be disallowed. Enforcement will be necessary. We should not be encouraging people to come to Chatham this summer, especially to participate in events which are likely to spread the virus.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments. And you see right off the bat, we have two very different perspectives. So let's go to our Zoom video conference and let's start taking some of the calls.
Hey, Brad, we have Sally. She's in the waiting room with her hand up. Go
Okay.
ahead, Sally.
Sally, welcome to the Chatham COVID-19 Community Forum.
Oh, thank you. It's so good to see everyone here. I'm Sally Duval, and I happen to be president of the Chatham Band. So band concerts are foremost on my mind. I envision all sorts of ways that we could possibly create safe zones for people to view our concerts and possibly not have a march around where people are very much so gathered. But I'm very concerned about our band members. Many of our members are elderly, 70s, 80s, up into the 90s. There are 35 of us sometimes, and we cannot safely distance ourselves on the bandstand. And that is very worrisome for me.
Sure. Sally, how would you talked about right when you began about safe zones. What are some of your ideas on how you would establish those?
Well, I think that there would have to be a way to distance blankets, maybe only allow so many. Perhaps the bandstand isn't the place for summer concerts, with the Cape Cod Baseball League having canceled. Maybe Veterans Field is a larger place for band concerts, and possibly the band could distance themselves from each other on the bleachers, are just some of the ideas that I've thought of. But it would be difficult, definitely.
Okay. Well, those are some great ideas, and thank you for coming on tonight in our community forum. Okay, let's take another call.
Brad, we have Tom Wilson in the waiting room. Go ahead, Tom.
Tom Wilson, welcome to the community forum.
Actually, Tom's going to have something later to say. This is his wife, Jane Wilson.
Okay,
My
Jane.
position is, hi, my position is COVID-19 is a silent killer. We don't know how to track or to cure it at this point, and it's now in the White House. I want to live through this pandemic. I think the simplest way to prepare the town for the future is only to allow residents of Chatham to get beach passes this summer. This would obviously include summer residents also. I would also post a police officer at all beach parking areas to enforce the resident sticker rule. And all beach goers should be wearing masks. The parking lot should allow only 50% capacity, every other parking space used. Shops and, beg your pardon? Shops and restaurants should be limited traffic to allow 6-foot distancing and seating capacity to 50%. I think the focus should then be directed on how our town's going to prepare for the fall and for our school openings.
Okay, well, thanks for your comments. Let's go back to the beach for a moment. You talked about limiting the traffic. What's your thinking in terms of perhaps even on the beach, in terms of making sure that that beachgoers have enough distance between them?
Well, I think that should be reinforced at the the entrance area. We're going to have a police officer that's going to enforce the mask, and maybe we need somebody on the beaches, some police or somehow police officer, some person of authority out walking the beach and enforcing at least a 6-foot distancing.
My thought was that maybe, much like we rope off to protect the birds on certain sections of the beach, we could rope off sections for groups to sit and make some kind of corridor where people could enter and exit, and then have areas roped off where people could sit.
Okay. All right. Anything else in terms of large gatherings?
No, I had one other
Okay.
thought, which is, as we open the town, I think one of the things we need to prepare for is a backup plan in case our first responders are affected by an outbreak of the coronavirus. If the police and fire department have a number of individuals who go out on that, how are we going to be prepared, especially in July and August when our town population swells?
Okay.
What's our
Thank you so much. A great question. All right. Thank you. And let's take another Zoom call.
We have Christine Johnson in the room. Go
Christine,
ahead,
welcome.
Christine.
Actually, not Christine, her husband, Rob. She's hijacked my.
Okay. All right, Rob, welcome.
Let me first, we're seasonal residents of the old village.
Okay.
And I'd first like to thank the selectmen for this opportunity to have this forum. So appreciate it. We live in Texas, just outside of Houston. And as you all are aware, Texas has been among the more aggressive states in reopening. And that's been bumpy. And nobody wants to be in Chatham. And we are here in Texas now, by the way. Nobody wants to be in Chatham more than we do. We enjoy entertaining guests in Chatham.
Let me ask you, Rob, when would you normally be coming up to Chatham?
Early June.
Okay.
We will not be coming in early June. Right now, we're looking at mid-June. earliest. We are also challenged because we drive, because we have 2 dogs we would otherwise bring. So we've got to drive across half the country to get there, and that's a whole other dynamic. I think this is a summer like no other. And I look at the experience Texas has had with the beaches. In Galveston, just this past weekend, you have lifeguards who are trying to save lives and protect lives in the ocean, but being forced to police social distancing. There's a real
Are we hearing Rob? Are we having a problem hearing Rob?
We are having a
Okay.
problem hearing Rob.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I think in practical reality, the ability to practice effective social distancing at any kind of a significant gathering or police it on the beaches is going to be very difficult. And the other issue is the resource strain. One of the reasons we did not come was because we were very concerned about straining the resources, both in terms of food and healthcare. And that is going to be the case this summer as well. So I'll stop there. I don't envy you the decisions you have to make, but appreciate the opportunity to comment.
Rob, just a quick question. What would you recommend regarding the beaches in Chatham this summer?
I think you can't keep them closed. But I do think you've got to find some means by which to get additional funding, to get additional resources to police the beaches. Like Lighthouse Beach, great example. You've got a very small beach patrol. That's not going to work. The lifeguards at Nauset can't be expected to be watching people 6 feet apart when you've got to be watching the Atlantic Ocean. That costs a lot of money. I think if you're going to open the beaches in a meaningful way, you've got to find additional funds to pay for the resources you're going to need to do that.
Okay. Rob, thanks so very much. Certainly look forward to seeing you up in Chatham. Okay, let's take another call via Zoom.
We have Susan on the line, and Susan, go ahead.
Susan,
Hi.
welcome to COVID-19 Community Forum.
Hello, my name is Susan Ross. I've lived in Chatham year-round for years now. I'm kind of blown away by the fact that you're talking about what's going to happen when you have large amounts of people here. So I'd like to give you some statistics. In the last 2 weeks, the number of cases in Massachusetts has risen by 25,000. In Chatham alone, we went from 9 cases to 12, and I assume it's the last week. 55% of this town is over 55 years old. I live on the bottom end of Kroll, across from the bakery and next to the bike store. And I have rapport with both of them because I frequented them. I've watched for the last, and I have 3 McMansions behind me that Marsh put up that have had people here in the 2 years, maybe 4 or 5 times an entire 2-year period. They're all of these people, and every time I walk my dog, I go by 20 seasonal houses. Every single one now has not only owners in it, but they have their friends, they have their families. The guy next door had a party last weekend with 7 cars, including a local person. We had a person across the street who has 4 cars here every week, and they're in and out all day. They're not staying in. They're shopping at the few places that are open. I've been for 2 months now. I walk to the village market to get my food, and I go to the bakery. And I'm concerned because in less than 2 weeks, historically, 22,000 people show up in a town of 6,600. The Cape is the oldest population in all of New England, and that's on Wikipedia. The average, 44% of the population here is over 55, and Chatham happens to have 55%. I'm concerned about the fact that you're talking about having large groups of people. I'm concerned about the fact that I walk to the market now, or I look, and as I walk next door, I see Danny, who owns the bike shop, who has curbside business, but no one's wearing masks except for him. I go to the market and I see people who are from New York, and I am born and raised in Manhattan. I am disabled from 9/11, so I understand crises. I see these people with New York plates and New Jersey plates, and they're loading up their cars with food. And from everything we've been told, numbers are going to start peaking in June. They've already predicted that the death toll is going to double by June. The numbers are going to toll, and our numbers by no means have flattened. So we're predicting our town quadrupling in population over the next few weeks. And I just, Plymouth County now has as many cases as Middlesex. So, and that was always very quiet the way we were. So I'm concerned about this. Our healthcare system is marginal at best. And I mean, I know they just closed the auxiliary hospital they had set up, but we're just starting to peak. Everybody's saying we're starting to peak. And I'm
Excuse me, Susan,
concerned
we
about.
just have a few more seconds, and
Go
please
ahead.
speak just a few more seconds, and
So I'm
just make a
concerned about
closing
the fact
statement.
that I'm concerned about the fact that we're talking about having, people here. And the other thing is, what do you expect to do with the
Okay.
ponds? We don't know whether what this virus, how many people, how close you're to the ponds. So
Okay.
that's my statement.
Susan, thank you so very, very much. I also want to remind everybody that if you don't want to come on the Zoom call, you can participate through email again at communityforum@chatham-ma.gov. And again, we're going to be reading as many emails tonight as we can. Okay, let's continue taking another Zoom call.
Okay, Brad, we have Kimberly. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Kimberly, welcome.
Hi, is that me? Robbins here? Yeah. I am a resident. I'm a business owner, and I'm also a commissioner on the Parks and Rec.
Okay.
So I kind of have a couple of different, like question number 1 and 3 apply to me, but I'll just obviously stick to question 1.
Just focus to one. You can always give us your comments later on. Go ahead.
Yes, yeah, I'll do that. So first of all, as a commission, we have not had the opportunity to meet yet. We are eager to do so. I spoke with Meredith Fry today, and we want to definitely be proactive. We are not really at this point interested in closing the beaches, but we are wanting to obviously hear from everybody and approach it with caution. And obviously, as everything unfolds, I think May 18th being a pivotal date where the governor will give us a little bit of direction will help out. But as it stands, I don't think that closing the beaches right now is something that we really want to do, but we definitely want to have ideas, as you had mentioned, and asked other people for them. So we're closely following what other towns are doing, what other states are doing. What I think is really important about Chatham is, in anything, we're just different. Each town is unique. So to compare Chatham beaches to California beaches or Texas beaches or even state beaches somewhere else, it's just not the same here, as I think we could all agree. So to keep updated with what like Wellfleet is doing, maybe limiting day passes. I mean, there's a lot to consider, and we will consider a bunch of ideas, obviously. As far as population flow, I'm also an owner of Chatham Vacation Rentals, and so I have a ton of hard data and anecdotal data as far as what we're doing for reservations and cancellations, and what the guests from all over the world they're calling us every day, where we've fielded hundreds and hundreds of inquiries and cancellation requests. Well, not hundreds of cancellations, but so I'll share later some data or at a different time that will tell you basically when the huge flow, and I think we all know when the tourists come in, but I think we have some time. June isn't really a huge month for vacation rentals, weekly rentals, things like that. We really get a push July 4th. So I think we'll have a little bit of breathing room to decide what to do, because I don't think we're gonna have the influx. We already have the second homeowners here, as somebody else attested to. The population's obviously increased significantly, but I think that with time, we'll figure this out. And if we have a very measured approach, that if we're going to be able to have a season, it will be a muted and slow season. So I have a bunch of other ideas for question number 3.
Okay, great.
So I just thought I'd offer that to you.
All right, terrific. Kimberly, thanks so much for your comments, and thanks for participating tonight at the Community Forum. Again, I just want to remind everybody who's coming in on Zoom, you can express your comment by using the hand raise function. And again, everyone's going to be muted until you are recognized to speak. Let's take another call on Zoom.
Okay, we have Ann Malone. Go ahead, Ann.
And
Hi.
welcome.
Hi,
Thank you.
this is Ann and Carl Malone. We're summer
Carl, welcome.
residents. We've been up on the Cape.
Okay.
We've been up on the Cape for over 30 years. Hello? Can you hear us?
Yep. Are
I think
you?
we're frozen.
Yes, we
Hello?
can. Are you here?
Oh,
Are
we have to
you?
unmute.
Could we?
Hello?
Do we have them?
Yes, we're here.
Okay. We can hear you.
We're here. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can. Are we having?
Okay. We're Ann and Carl Malone. We've been summer residents for over 30 years on the Cape. We live at 270 Ridgevale Road. I have a couple of suggestions. I would think that you should start off very slow and opening up Chatham during the summer, maybe restricting motel rooms to 25% capacity. The big thing in the town of Chatham, I would institute a one-way walking pattern in Chatham. One side of the street is in one direction, one side of the street is in the other direction. So you would control the flow of people passing each other properly. And I think you could do that very easily. I think for the beaches, I think you should open the beaches on session basis and limit it to half the capacity at the parking lots, but you would have a morning session. People would enter in the morning, but they would have to exit at noontime. You would have a afternoon session that maybe they exit at 4 o'clock or 4:30, and then you would have a twilight session. Okay, so you could have 3 sessions a day, but you would limit the capacity in the parking lot to 50% or maybe even less. But you would definitely have a number of different sessions at the beaches. So I think that would be very helpful. Ann, do you?
Yeah, I'm very much in agreement with prior speakers who looked at the statistics and the fact that we may be just reaching, or approaching the peak. We live in New Jersey, so we've been hard hit and we're coming down. Massachusetts is perhaps going up. The age of the average Chatham resident is very concerning. And hospital capacity, I guess they have already dismantled an annex that they had set up. But I'm very concerned, and I'm hoping that we could get through this summer. I really care for the merchants. I understand their plight. I'm a small business person myself. So we've got to look at that angle as well. But I do echo what other women actually said about their concerns. And I thank you for letting me speak.
Well, we thank you for joining us tonight, and thanks so much. Now, are you in Chatham now, or are you still in?
No, we're in Jersey. We're still in Jersey.
Okay. Okay. Well, certainly when you come up, have a safe trip. Thank you so very much.
Be allowed in.
Well, I guess that's a decision that that the selectmen have to make. So we certainly want you here. So, anyways, thank you so much for your comments. Again, if you're watching right now on Channel 18 or YouTube, we are holding the COVID-19 Community Forum tonight. We are on question number 1, which is how do we handle large public gatherings? And we're going to take another Zoom call now.
We have Florence Selden. Go ahead, Florence.
Miss Selden, how are you tonight?
Okay, how are you, Brad?
Very, very well.
Okay, good. I want to thank the Board of Selectmen and the town for enabling this discussion. I think although somebody has pointed out, each town is unique. I think it's very important that we act regionally. So I was pleased that Selectman Chair Davis is on the regional committee, which is made up of representatives of each town, Chamber of Commerce, and Sarah Peak. It's important to do that because what happens in other towns does impact what happens to us. If one town closes its beaches, people will run to another town's beaches. So a couple of things. I think it's very difficult to balance, as somebody said, balance out livelihoods and lives. Very difficult. I think we want to take into consideration both. I well know the plight of the business owners in this town and sympathize with them. We have a member of our family, close family, who is a restaurant owner in Boston area. And so I know the financial pain as well as the emotional pain of having to lay off many people. The two main things that we know will help to level we're still going up in Massachusetts, but to achieve a plateau are social distancing and wearing of masks. And so that's the two things that we need to focus on. I don't believe that having the 4th of July parade, having the Friday night concerts, or the Monday night strolls enable us to have social distancing. One of my recommendations would be to think about making Main Street, whether it's several days a week, maybe Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a total walking street. We know now that you can't walk down Main Street 6 feet apart, no matter how you might try. So this would enable them to be more room. It also would enable merchants to put out tables. We don't allow that now, but they could put a table out on the sidewalk with merchandise. If any of you have been to True Value Hardware in Harwich, they have used that very effectively this whole season, where people do not go out, do not go in the store, come up to the table, indicate what they want to a clerk who then goes into the store. I'm concerned about having many people in a store. I'm concerned for the people who are working in that store. Some of you may have read recently, just the other day, about what happened in Nashville when they
Excuse me,
opened up.
Florence, just a few more seconds now too, just for
Oh,
that
okay.
3-minute limit. Go ahead.
So another thing, somebody's already suggested this, that we limit the number of cars. Sometimes in the summer, we have a huge number of cars. Every parking space is taken at the beaches. And I would not like to see any one-day beach passes, because this would encourage people to come down for just the one day. We've asked people who come to their summer homes to quarantine for 14 days. That would be impossible. And I think we need to think about, whatever we do, we need to think about our first responders. Do we really want to put our police force, for example, in the position of having to argue with people who are not sitting 6 feet apart? So these are some of the issues and questions that I think we need to address. And thank you for the opportunity.
Right, thank you for joining our forum tonight. Let's take another call on Zoom.
We have Bob Wood on the line.
Bob, welcome. And Bob, what is your affiliation to Chatham?
We're just unmuting him right now.
Okay. Again, if anybody has any comments who is watching tonight, you can always email at communityforum@chatham-ma.gov, and the Board of Selectmen will be getting every single one of the emails that are sent to that address. Do we have Bob on?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
Bob.
There you go, Bob.
Welcome, Bob. What's your affiliation to Chatham, Bob?
We are summer residents.
Okay.
Been coming to Chatham for years, my wife Margaret and I. And I'm a homeowner as well, obviously. So I'm a veteran, but we both were in the military for 36 years. So
thank you for your service.
Thank you. The 4th of July parade is very important to us. And I think I have at least a simple suggestion. It's obviously nothing that simple, but in order to celebrate the 4th and the parade itself, I would suggest a route that goes through the neighborhoods. Make a longer route, allow us to celebrate from our front yards, across the street from our neighbors. It would space out the parade. It would allow us all to celebrate, and it wouldn't put the crowd that we worry about downtown. I'm sure our police officers could come up with the right route. I'm sure we could do that through the neighborhoods in a way that would allow us all to celebrate. It's such a great event. And this year, we might just have to do something different. that breaks out from the standard crowds that we see, but probably when you string it out across the proper route, you could probably show our pride in a probably maybe even a larger way when you look at the people who can celebrate. Publicize it early, celebrate the unity of the parade for Chatham, and socially distance by properly selecting the route. I'm strongly in favor of the idea about a pedestrian zone downtown that would open up so much of the town and social distancing. So we may lose a moment of the commerce that we always get out of the parade, but we could have a terrific downtown socially distanced activity that would, I think, make sure the merchants don't suffer. So I offer that as a suggestion, have some suggestions later. Thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Bob, thank you so very, very much. You know, it's great. Do you have some suggestions too?
Yes.
Go ahead.
do.
Go ahead.
We have been, of course, social distancing since I think March 7th. Well, this started up and we knew that it was, attacking us more senior people. So we've been in for a long time. But we do have to do some food shopping. I do. And so when I do, it's always the mask, the gloves, and the stores have been very good at assisting this. They only have a few aisles open to cash out. That's so they can sterilize other ones that are not being used. There is a limit of number of people who can go into a store. For instance, Trader Joe's says you have to stand outside, so they have sterilized the wagon, and 2 people have come out, and then they let the next one in. So there's a constant flow, and people are pretty polite and patient about it. And it seems to move pretty quickly. Our smaller stores, like our Ace Hardware, they only allow 6 people in the store, and they split their entrance that one way you go in and the other side you go out. Again, everything's practiced with masks and gloves, and it really runs very smoothly. But what it allows is it allows our small businesses to survive, and it also mentally is good to get out just for a 20-minute shop for things that you need. So I would say there's a lot of very creative ways to protect ourselves and protect our neighbors. Another thing of concern might be enough signage. And those real estate signs that they are on like metal prongs and they're like corrugated cardboard. It can have the COVID requirements, or it can have must follow COVID requirements from the state, and then also have any special requirements you have. And one in particular would be that there's a fine if you throw your used gloves or your mask on the ground and not properly disposed. Because I do see that where we go walking along the Potomac River. We're in Alexandria, Virginia, so we're right off the river.
Okay. And I just ask you kind of wrap up your final thoughts right now. We're approaching 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm just saying there's a lot of very creative ways that can let your community live, let your businesses thrive, and we can have more to say,
Sure.
but I'd like you to keep those in mind.
Great. Well, you've come up with and suggested some great creative ideas to balance opening with health and safety, and that's great. So I ask others, we'll take another Zoom call. What are your thoughts? What are your creative, out of the box thinking for this summer? Let's take another one.
We have someone calling in on a telephone. The last 4 digits are 6837. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Who are we speaking with? And welcome.
Some background noise there.
Yep. Who are we speaking with?
Hey, this is Herb Bassett.
Herb, how are you? Welcome.
Good. My wife and I are lifelong residents of Chatham.
Okay. Welcome.
We have had to go into quarantine twice since this epidemic started. we couldn't go near our grandchildren for about 2 months. I want to point out that Massachusetts is ranked 3rd highest in the nation for coronavirus cases. That's an awful dangerous number to us. Another thing that we need to point out is there is a new syndrome, COVID-19 related, that is affecting children. And with Kawasaki disease like syndrome, that's how it's presenting. We don't know anything about this yet. So I don't think we can have any large gatherings until we have more information. I don't think we can have a 4th of July parade. I hate saying that because 2 of our grandchildren are in it every year. But I think we now have to start looking at what might be coming along for the children that's COVID-19 related too. Thank you very much.
Herb, thank you so much for joining us tonight and your thoughts. Let's take another Zoom call.
We have Chuck McQuaid.
Chuck, welcome.
Yes, thank you for having this forum. I'm a seasonal owner.
Seasonal owner.
Can you hear me now? I'm a seasonal owner.
Chuck,
and
are you up in Chatham now?
I am not. I'm in suburban Chicago.
Okay.
I am in suburban Chicago right now.
Okay.
And I spent my career dealing with statistics. And I'd just like to comment that people are looking at the cumulative number of cases. And these statistics are available on a website daily. And the cumulative number of cases is not going to go down. It can only go up by definition. The better number to look at is the number of new infections. So if you look at the Massachusetts website for COVID-19, which you can Google, you see that as of today, 78,462 confirmed cases and 669 new cases. That number of new cases is down 85% from its peak. Now, the numbers are a little bit funky, particularly on weekends, so I prefer to use a 7-day moving average. The 7-day moving average number of new cases is down 46% from its peak. And that 46% drop happened over the last 12 days. So if the drop continues at that rate, there'll be very few new cases by summertime. So I think we better look at the right numbers before we make some decisions. So that's one comment. And the other comment I'd suggest, I think there's been a lot of good comments. I would suggest that the essential stores in town, the grocery stores and the pharmacies, have senior hours for people over 65 who are most vulnerable and for people who are immunocompromised. A couple hours a day where they restrict people coming in to just that group of people that deserve some greater amount of protection. Thank you very much.
Chuck, thanks so much for joining us and your very thoughtful comments. Let's take another Zoom call. Again, our question right now is, and we're spending a lot of time on this because I know that we've got a lot of people that have been sending emails in and also on the Zoom call specifically want to answer the question is how do we handle large public gatherings this summer? Let's take another Zoom call.
We have Jennifer Connors.
Jennifer, welcome.
Hi, I'm Jen Connors. I'm a year-round resident, a mom. My husband and I. Thank you. Hi. Yeah, we have 2 children that attend the local school system. And I have a couple of thoughts. You know, my background is healthcare. I'm a nurse practitioner. I don't do infectious disease or epidemiology. I'm in cardiology. But I follow the data from the science community. And so kind of my opinions are based on looking more at the CIDRAP report. I don't know if people are familiar with it, but it may be something worth familiarizing yourself with in regards to making these decisions. It's the COVID-19 CIDRAP report, and it's put out by a group of epidemiologists, infectious diseases. Most of them are at the Harvard Chen School of Public Health. So I'm going to reference most of the data. And I understand and respect, Chuck, who was the statistician that last spoke. And yes, numbers are fuzzy and they're funny, but this group of epidemiologists, infectious disease specialists kind of go through all that stuff. And the idea of a peak, I think, is really important to talk about. In regards to the peak, the premise of a peak is misunderstood, and the implication of it is that, and I'm kind of quoting this report, is that we are descending from one peak, and once we get down to the bottom, nearly all the issues will be over. Nearly all all the experts and most officials know that the emphasis on one peak is wrong. And that the most dangerous myth is that we can come out of a lockdown and rebuild the economy without incurring a sizable and ongoing increase in COVID-19 cases and death. And so the reason the numbers may look okay now, Chuck, is that we've been on lockdown. So if we lift those, we're going to see more cases. So I think Governor Baker just came out this afternoon with a guideline for businesses, and I think we should look at that. And he uses a metric of the healthcare system, a healthcare metric, to determine whether or not the guidelines that you're putting in place actually work. So, I think that it's important to balance the two fears, the fear of worsening this pandemic versus the fear of economic devastation, which are both real. And I think we have to carefully look at that. And I think that if you kind of go to the experts, the epidemiologists, they have ideas about how to do this. And they talk about an XYZ plan. Y is your ideal, but you accept a bare minimum, which is X. And then you offer alternatives, which are even more conservative, which are Z. And you constantly relook at your data point, and see if you're reaching a metric, at a point on the metric where you need to say, wait a second, we've had either too many tests, period. More people are coming in sick. More people are going to the emergency room. You can look at ICU beds, but I honestly feel like the horse is out of the barn by the time you look at ICU beds. So
Jen, we're about just to have a few more seconds right now. We're coming up on 3 minutes. So if you can kind of make your closing thought.
Yeah, okay, my closing thoughts are that we should not, for question to answer one, is we shouldn't have parades. I think I understand and respect the veterans have served, and I think that's it's a remarkable thing that they've done, and but I don't think the parade is safe. I think the band concerts are not safe. I can't imagine how you can possibly socially distance. And I just refer you back to the epidemiologists, infectious disease experts who do this for a living, for guidance, and specifically the CIDRAP report. They put it right out there, actually, for government leaders how to approach these things. Thank you.
Right. Jen, thank you so very much for your comments. Again, we are holding the Chatham COVID-19 Community Forum, and you can participate either by Zoom video conference, by calling into the conference, or also sending an email, which is communityforum@chatham-ma.gov. And we're going to be reading a few of those in just a few minutes, but let's take another Zoom call.
We have Knox BF.
Knox, welcome.
Hi, how are you? I don't know.
Very
if you
well.
can see me. Anyway, I am a seasonal resident. We live in Maryland, and we generally spend our summer there. I think that there's a couple of points that people are making that aren't necessarily factual based on what the summer is going to look like. And for instance, the numbers in Massachusetts right now have no bearing on what it will look like when you bring people from all over the country into Chatham this summer. I disagree with whoever suggested that most of the seasonal residents are already there. It sounds like a good percentage of the New York population might be there, but people from all over the country still aren't there. So I guess I'm suggesting that the selectmen need to kind of look at this in three different levels of people. First being the primary residents who have no other choice but to be there. And then secondly being residents who are generally summer residents but do own a place. And then third being the rental market. Which I think actually, from my conversations with friends and colleagues, we have 2 young children, but we're stir crazy at our house here. So the plan to go to Chatham is to go somewhere else. And obviously we're not going to be able to go on vacations or flights, but we're not the only ones thinking, okay, we'll go to Chatham. And I think that a lot of people, especially in Massachusetts, are thinking, let's go for a rental on Cape Cod versus another summer vacation. So I just expect to see a huge influx there. And it concerns me for the safety of the residents. You know, when even just listening now, I'm very concerned for the plight of people. I think that mass gatherings, it sounds like a no-brainer to cancel those, but a day in downtown Chatham, a sunny day in downtown Chatham is a mass gathering if you're walking the streets. So I think that, you know, some of the suggestions, obviously, maybe opening Main Street, which will eliminate people because they won't have a place to park, as well as giving more space for social distancing sounds good. I like the opportunity to possibly use Veterans Field where we can and have people maybe be able to set up markets there sometimes, give as much space as possible and try to leverage all usable space. But things are gonna have to be very different in my opinion. And it's unfortunate and it's sad and we love Chatham the way it is, but I think people are gonna have to be very respectful of that this year.
Okay, Knox, thanks so very much for joining us tonight. Let's take another Zoom call.
We have Steve Buckley.
Steve, welcome to the Community Forum tonight. Steve?
Yeah, no, I thought you were cut off there for a second. Anyway, Steve Buckley, I grew up in Chatham, spent 25 years in Washington working mostly for the federal government, came back, was on the long range planning committee, and now I'm on the economic development committee and have been an advocate of open government and citizen participation. So I applaud the Board of Selectmen for providing for this forum for crowdsourcing on how to go forward with what to do this summer.
So what are you, Steve, what are your thoughts on large public gatherings this summer?
Well, that was the question. It's like, I have something to say, but do I have to wait until you get to that question, or do I use up my
that's the question. You can pause right now, but that's the question we're focusing on right now.
But let me ask a question, Pierce. I'm sorry, Brad. If I use my 3 minutes now, do I get any time later? You didn't say that.
You can if you want. It depends just on the queue, but let's, why don't you give us your thoughts?
It's only on number 4 and 5, so I reserve my time. Thank you.
Okay, great. Absolutely. All right, let's take another call. Another call on Zoom.
We have Mike and Margaret Thompson.
Mike and Margaret, welcome to the Community Forum this evening.
Go ahead, Mike.
I have a few some top ideas here. The first one is somebody mentioned making the Main Street, the shopping area part of Main Street, unidirectional. I would definitely endorse that. So one side you'd walk up and the other side you'd walk down. And that would certainly eliminate many interactions between people and minimize some other close interactions if you were to do that. I think that's important. Florence Selden mentioned something that I've always dreamt of, that's a pedestrian Main Street. She mentioned, well, maybe you could stop the traffic for some period for 1 or 2 days. But a simpler way initially would be to eliminate some of the parking for the summer so that you would effectively widen the sidewalks. So those sidewalks are very narrow, and that would again minimize interaction between people, which I think is important. There's going to be social distancing and so on in the restaurants. So the bottom line is that Chatham will not be able to handle its usual number of visitors. So therefore, unfortunately, Chatham should not encourage visitors to come here this summer. And particularly, I think at the time of the band concerts, when we get a lot of people that come from the surrounding towns, they create a very congested environment in Gould Park. And I think those concerts, unfortunately, should be cancelled. I have another suggestion on the beaches. Whenever I go to the beach, I always walk along it to a clear, empty area. I think there should be some signage at the beach that encourages that. There's always everyone congregates around the car park. There's always lots of space, a short walk away from the car park. And I think some signage to encourage folks to lighten their load and walk a bit further would be very significant. Now, I'd just like to make one other point, which is more general. I gather that there's a regional task force that's been convened to come up with a plan to safely reopen the Cape and Islands. And I assume that state guidelines will constrain that task force, and that Chatham will be further constrained by those task force guidelines. So Chatham, I've been wondering whether Chatham can provide input to that task force, or what the connection is. So that's a question that I'm asking.
Okay, Mike, if you just want to summarize, we're about at 3 minutes up now. So if you just want to make closing comments.
Yeah, the spokesperson, Senator Julian Sire, had said the guidelines should be consistent and uniform. So that is something that will have to be applied to anything that Chatham comes up with. Thank you.
Okay, Michael, thank you so very much for your comments. All right, why don't we take some emails? And this has been great in terms of the input we've gotten in terms of your different feelings so far, and also the creative ideas that you've submitted. Let's, Sean, let's take a couple of emails.
Sure. We have from Tom Deegan, who is the owner of Mom and Pops. His recommendation, this is a partial email, it's rather long, so I'm just going to take this particular one. My recommendation in general is that all decisions should be based on what's safest for the public given the current state of affairs with the coronavirus. Our experience so far in operating during coronavirus was that many people followed our protocols, some did not, and others challenged them. Those that did not follow or challenged our protocols have made it difficult and at times frightening on our staff to operate. My concern around large public gatherings is that they would present similar challenges to the town's police, fire department, and first responders, only on a much larger scale. Also, unless we are clear of the virus, it would seem that these large gatherings would be a way for the coronavirus to spread on a large scale in Chatham. What happens if there's a large outbreak here? What happens if there's an outbreak in the police and fire departments?
Okay, Tom, thank you for participating. Sean, let's read another one.
Sure, this is from John. His daughter had a thought about how the band concerts could be moved to the ballpark. The band could set up near home plate and the public could spread out on the field and on the hills to accommodate people while social distancing. It could also be taped or live on local cable for those who cannot go. We need to keep the American spirit in Chatham this year, and nothing says it better than the Chatham Band.
Okay. Shauna, continuing with another one.
Here's one from Janice that says, I suggest the July 4th parade, Friday night band concerts, and arts festivals be canceled for the summer. It would be irresponsible for the town to consider gatherings of this size. Take this action to limit exposure to residents and visitors. Consider limiting parking on Main Street and possibly allowing pedestrians to walk in the street to allow for a greater social distancing when shopping. And I will say, Brad, there have been numerous emails that are in favor of pedestrian Main Street or one-way walking on Main Street, closing Main Street to traffic, at least on a partial basis.
Okay, great. Well, it's great to know, and certainly, again, a creative idea to how to deal with what we're facing this summer. Okay, well, that has been our first question, and I want to make sure that we have enough time for the other 4 questions, and I'm sure you're going to have as much feedback on that. So let's pivot to number 2. That question is, how can we establish a consistent set of guidelines for safety? How can we establish a consistent set of guidelines for safety? Sean, want to start us off with one?
Sure. Here's one from Cheryl. In addition to following the state recommendations and guidelines closely, consider reopening oversight by a task force of medical and health professionals, including an epidemiologist, essential workers, including frontline workers, law enforcement, and more. We should follow state recommendations, not hold events or open services, which will draw a public gathering unless social distancing and other recommended safety practices can be reliably adhered to and enforced. Put measures in place to ensure the above, such as limiting admissions, requiring antiviral cleaning, maybe restaurants with outdoor seating, mark social distancing footprints, and providing masks to refusers.
Okay, and let's read one more, Shauna, on this, and then we'll turn it over to take our Zoom callers.
Okay, from Eva, we have consistent townwide guidelines for safety must first be compliant and totally consistent with any statewide or federal rules and regulations, which under all circumstances should supersede any town guidelines. As far as any action taken by the town of Chatham, obviously any and all guidelines must place avoidance of spreading COVID-19 and the safety of our residents first. So any town guidelines should be easy to understand, readily make sense, and be simple to communicate.
Okay, Eva, thank you so very much for your thoughts. Let's turn it over to our Zoom callers. Again, question number 2, how can we establish a consistent set of guidelines for safety? Let's take a Zoom caller.
We have Scott on the line. We will be getting to Scott Smith. There are 2 Scotts.
Two Scotts, okay.
Scott
All right.
is first.
Scott number 1, welcome.
Very good. Thank you. I'm Scott Hamilton, and I am manager at Chatham Jewelers right in the middle of downtown. I'm also this year's Chamber of Commerce president. I have an affiliation with the First Congregational Church, which is currently under construction at the Rotary, and with the Chatham Drama Guild, who are wondering whether we're going to be able to have any kind of a season this year at all. So I've got a foot in a number of different puddles here. The first one I'm going to say in terms of to this question, although I had my hand raised on the first question about large gatherings, having people talk about downtown and closing off the street to vehicular traffic is extremely impractical for the businesses to try to operate to get not only their employees there, but also deliveries up and down if you have a closed off street. And no, you can't limit deliveries till before 7 o'clock in the morning or after 9 o'clock at night, because FedEx doesn't work that way. Also, the one-way sidewalks makes a lot of sense in terms of being able to maintain social distancing for what everyone has to believe are going to be diminished crowds. It's not going to be a summer where you're going to have two people per square foot on the sidewalks. It just will not be. But the businesses downtown and in every other place in Chatham need to have the ability to be able to respond to the government guidelines set forth and be able to open their doors to have customers, or you will lose our downtown, because people can't survive an entire year being closed up and having no one, only relying on internet business. And you need to be able to drive as close as you can to the location you want to get to, and not be forced to walk in from distances far beyond either the downtown distance, or in West Chatham or in North Chatham, far away from your desired destination when you're coming. Those are my comments there. One-way sidewalks, that makes a lot of sense, but closing down Main Street doesn't make a lot of sense. I've got employees who would say, sorry, see you next year. The band concert comes to mind as the major gathering situation, and the idea of doing a virtual or video band concert. We're going to have the Memorial Day celebrations, commemorations in a couple of weeks, and it is my understanding that that is how we're going to be doing that, is a virtual arrangement where it will be.
Excuse me, Scott, we're almost at 3 minutes, so if you just want to give your closing comments, sir.
And establishing consistent townwide guidelines for safety. Yes, if you're going to establish something for how you handle people downtown, you need to also have it for how you handle people in West Chatham and in North Chatham, because in all of Chatham, beaches should be open and it should be monitored and policed, but people have to have the ability to get out and get around.
Great. Scott, thank you so very much for your thoughtful comments. Let's have the next Scott now. Scott number 2. That was Scott number 1. Now let's go to Scott number 2.
Go ahead, Scott.
Scott Smith this time?
Okay. That is correct.
Scott, what's your affiliation with Chatham, Scott?
We're a seasonal resident.
Okay. Welcome.
We've actually been down here a couple of months now, but since the school's closed, my wife's a teacher, and we moved down here when that happened.
Okay.
So we've been here for a while, and been pretty quarantined through that period of time. So my comment is that, you know, until there's a vaccine, I think we're all going to have to live with some version of social distancing, and that could be quite a bit of time. If you listen to the experts, one of the prerequisites of reopening safely is a robust testing and tracing capability. I haven't heard much discussion in Chatham of that, right? So I have not seen any significant efforts to ramp up testing or build tracing capabilities in Chatham. You know, there have been some scattered reports of towns across the United States that have actually targeted and achieved 100% testing in their towns. So everybody's getting a test. They get tested regularly, and when new cases show up, they're traced very successfully, and the quarantines are immediate. You know, so the question, I guess, the question I have is, you know, should the town of Chatham be endeavoring to launch a robust testing and tracing capability so we can reopen with the confidence that we are doing it safely?
Okay. Scott, thank you very much for your comments.
Yeah.
Let's take another Zoom call. Who do we have next?
We have Robert Wood. Go ahead,
Robert, welcome.
Hello, actually, it's Noreen Wood. Thank you very much.
Okay, Noreen.
Hi, I had sent an email in and I think you guys addressed it. I thank you for doing this, by the way. And we are part-time residents from Virginia.
Okay.
We also rent our home too.
Okay.
And understand that this summer will be most likely a very different summer for us, for our lovely village. My thought was one-way walking down Main Street. I was trying to think of a way to do that. I think the idea of trying to make the street wider is the way that we've got to have to do it. We can't kill our shops and our economy. We've got to just be careful how we do this. And I didn't know if there was a way to route people on foot coming up Main Street, coming into Chatham up Main Street, or coming down Main Street, have one way, Main Street, one way only walking, and then somehow they loop around in the back and come back. I don't know how you would physically do that, but it was just a thought to allow, you know, no cars on the street and one way walking. But the question is there, how do they get off Main Street, or where do they go? They'd have to go down, I don't know, Cross Street or whatever, but if there's a way to do that. Secondly, I liked very much the statistician's information. I found that very interesting because I do think there's a lot of confusion on what the numbers really are. And it's hard to really know what the truth is. And lastly, I really like the idea of possibly doing some kind of outdoor shops. I don't know, setting up shops at the ball field. If we're going to have an empty ball field, maybe we can use it. If we're going to have Veterans Park, somehow spread things out so people are forced to spread out. I thought that was a very interesting thought too.
Okay, Noreen, thank you so much for participating tonight. Just want to remind everybody too that if you want to be able to participate by email, just email your thoughts to communityforum@chatham-ma.gov. That's chathamforum@chatham-ma.gov. Let's take another Zoom call.
We have Chatham Works on the line.
Chatham Works, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Fred Beerworth. My wife Lindsay and I are the proprietors of Chatham Works. I guess just sort of a few comments. First of all, you know, as we all look at this, obviously, this is about risk versus reward, right? And I think part of the challenge is trying to understand what the risk is, which is a huge challenge. The gentleman who's the statistician certainly brought up some great points, and testing is really important, but I think that it's also extremely important to try to understand in really a more practical lens is hospitalization rate, ICU rate, intubation rate, death rate. And obviously, if those numbers are staying, somewhat muted in relation to testing numbers and testing positive numbers, then that suggests that, perhaps there's not as much to worry about in some respects. Now, obviously, this thing is terribly scary, and you can see what I have behind me, and that's something that we've kind of tried to stay true to. We closed before we were told we had to. Obviously, the whole question of flattening the curve is extremely important here. Many would say that it's already flattened. That's far beyond my pay grade. But again, this whole thing is risk reward. And I think that trying to keep a close eye on all those figures is really important. The challenging thing, and I saw that one of Governor Baker's advisors had suggested that perhaps Barnstable County might be able to be a little bit more lax with opening versus, Suffolk and Boston and more metro areas. The problem is that once we start to open that up, we run the risk of getting some more of those problems. So I'm glad that we have great people running the town looking out for our welfare. I think one of the really important things in terms of, as we all look at this is an extraordinarily complex problem and challenge on many levels, and especially for a town like Chatham that is so heavily dependent on 10 plus weeks of the summer. So I think that one of the things that I would encourage those in power and with influence to do is try to reduce complexity. And I think one of the ways to do that is to reduce the number of overall people in town. I think that's going to happen naturally, just by virtue of what's going on here. But as the chamber, the Cape Chamber has pointed out, hey, the Cape is within driving distance of a lot of big metro areas. People don't want to get on planes. We may have a ton of people come here. And by the way, if Chatham is more lax than other towns on the Cape, we're definitely going to get more people here. So I think,
Fred, we're coming up on 3 minutes. So if you just want to make your closing comments, sir.
A natural way to reduce the complexity and to make this an easier problem to deal with, I think, is to have fewer people in town. And perhaps a way to do that is to maintain no short-term rentals. And then just one other very quick comment. I think it's important to try to maximize flexibility. There are one-way decisions where you can't go back through the door, and then there are two-way decisions where you can kind of backpedal and change and adjust. And I think it's important to be able to backpedal and change and adjust. You can't get the toothpaste back in the tube once it's out. So thank you for the opportunity, and thanks for doing this.
Fred, thank you so much for participating tonight. Let's take another Zoom call. Who do we have?
We have Margaret Wood's iPhone. Margaret, go ahead.
Margaret?
Yes, it's Margaret Wood, and we have a home on Stage Harbor Road, and we're the folks who live in Alexandria, Virginia, and have been, like many people all over the United States, practicing social distance. And so I do think we have to keep this in mind as we move along with considerations. You will be getting a lot of advisement from your governor and from your state and other aspects who are also studying these issues, and they're going to give you guidelines or requirements down the road. And I think for you, for Chatham, we need to focus on what it is that we want to establish for a consistent set of town-wide guidelines for safety. And I think once you have that assessment of what it is that you really want to say or you want people to adhere to, that, between the internet, email the letter out, a formal letter from the town. And you can distribute that to real estate agencies, to hotels. You can ask them to require the participants to sign ahead of time that they understand that they need to follow these guidelines this summer under penalty of some sort if they don't. I mean, if you're trying to figure out a way to get people to really pay attention, this is pretty serious business because, we're a small place and we have a limited amount of medical facilities and have to take care of people. And then again, as reminders, I had that idea where you see those real estate signs and political signs, and they're on corrugated cardboard, and you can move them around anywhere. So they can be stationed if you're having something if you're going to have a concert, decide to have a band concert over in the baseball field. These can be well established for that evening's event, just so there's always reminders out there. So those are my suggestions for how to establish guidelines safely and to have people acknowledge that they understand what we are asking them to adhere to.
Margaret, great suggestions. Thank you so much for participating tonight. Again, to remind everybody who's on Zoom, you can express a comment by using the hand raise function, and everyone will be muted until you're recognized to speak. Let's take another Zoom call.
We have R. Reedy, 82.
Welcome.
Well, we are having a mute problem with them. Let's move down
Let's
to
take
Michael Westgate.
Michael?
And then we'll come back to R. Reedy.
Absolutely. All right, Michael, welcome to the COVID-19 Community Forum this evening.
Thank you, Brad. I'm a year-round resident, as you know. I had my hand raised during question 1. I'd like to say that the 4th of July parade is not a good idea. I am a veteran myself, but I
Thank you for your service.
I think we simply need to count 2020 as a non-4th of July parade year and have a bigger and better one next year. In terms of the current topic, stores have signs saying shoes required, so forth. I think that if the chamber were to have masks required on every storefront, if we had some kind of goodwill ambassadors at each of the major parking lots, if somebody wasn't wearing a mask, offer them a mask, have a police presence in the background, not to have the police up front trying to enforce it, but to have some people that were not in uniform, but with a police presence. And Chatham should have a reputation for enforcement of a mask policy. I don't know of a better way to demonstrate that we're all in support of each other, and your mask equals my life kind of message, I think would resonate. Thank you.
Okay, Michael, thank you so very much for participating. Did we get the other call back on Zoom?
We have not at this point in time.
Okay.
I did message them, and hopefully
Okay.
they'll get back.
All right, let's take another Zoom call.
We currently have no one pondering questions.
All right, let's take email. Shauna?
Sure. This is from Thomas. It says, given the abysmal lack of testing for either viral, RNA, or for antibodies, and given that a huge fraction of Chatham's populace is in the high risk category, it would be imprudent to reduce physical distancing and facial mask requirements. We still need to minimize face-to-face interactions until we have a much better understanding of the virus and its characteristics. The modeling suggests that opening up under such circumstances as now exist will substantially increase COVID-19 related deaths. Many tens of thousands are the numbers modeling indicates is likely nationwide.
Okay, take another one, Shauna.
Sure. This is from Anne, who says that if the town is on its own, choose to do more extensive contact research, gathering the names of potentially exposed individuals, not just those who came in contact over a 48-hour time span, but a week or 2 week span that would be far more successful. Another one, let me go back, suggests that if Chatham should adopt all regional and federal guidelines and then add Chatham specific recommendations to those.
Okay, well, if anybody, thank you for all your comments on question number 2. And again, you can, if you have any additional thoughts on that question about guidelines, you can participate by sending your email at communityforum@chatham-ma.gov. Let's move to question number 3 now, which is, how do businesses and nonprofits operate effectively and safely? How do businesses and nonprofits operate effectively and safely? Shauna, let's read a couple emails.
Sure, from Thomas. He says, while I would love to see the virus pass and businesses reopen, the exposure to infection remains high and there's virtually no testing available for the general public. As a result, one has no clue who is or who is not a carrier, where carriers can be asymptomatic. I would suggest that you allow restaurants to use the streets for outside dining in addition to large spacing within. Close down Main Street to both vehicular and bicycle and probably runners traffic from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. to allow its use by merchants.
Okay, let's have another one.
Sure, this is from Susan. How do businesses operate safely? Enforce guidelines apply there too. Encourage outdoor dining with tables separated, etc. Disinfectants used consistently. Allowed food trucks at beaches and in-town locations. Stores have no more than 4 or 5 inside at any time. Any restaurants that open must have takeout options and operate inside. For any people that feel safe inside, many may not. With tables far apart and constantly disinfected. Put more picnic tables in parks, etc., to encourage takeout options.
Okay, let's take one more and then we'll move to the Zoom call. One more email, Shauna.
Okay, this is from Dick. He suggests for grocery stores, uniformed quote unquote bouncer at entrances during busy times, particularly Saturday afternoons. Masks are mandatory, one-way aisles, limited number of shoppers in stores at one time, social distancing, plexiglass barriers between shoppers, cashiers, and customer service, signs and handouts with suggestions on disinfecting items, including food on arrival at residence, as well as times when stores have fewer shoppers. For restaurants, he suggests curbside takeout encouraged, high capacity, rigorously followed takeout routine, in-building dining by reservation only, capacity reduced greatly to enable distancing, disinfect hard surfaces, tables and chairs, and bar after each party.
Great. Thank you so much. Some great ideas to operate organizations effectively and safely. Do we have some more Zoom calls right now?
Yes, we do. We have
Okay,
Kimberly.
Great.
Kimberly,
welcome to the community forum this evening.
Hi, again, I actually answered question number 1.
Okay, welcome back.
I am a member of the Commissioner on the Parks and Rec, as I said earlier, but I'm also a business owner of a vacation rental agency. I've been doing it for 19 years now. And of course, we're approaching this with great caution. Our first and foremost priority is the community and the health of the community, and agree that we need to look at the data and follow the state guidelines that Governor Baker will hand down probably May 18th as far as opening the 4 or 5 step process. Obviously, this is going to be hugely impactful for all of the business owners here. I feel like we're on the front lines here of the tourism industry, where we're fielding calls every day from potential guests, cancellations and things like that. So I kind of just wanted to, when I'm hearing different things, I'm actually surprised at, no, I guess not too surprised, but how wildly different everything is. Some people are like, shut it down. Others are about opening it up gradually, which I think I mentioned is kind of whatever the guideline is that is suggested and whatever the data shows us, I think we obviously need to follow. I want to answer something Florence had mentioned, Florence Selden, that I mentioned Chatham's unique. I mean, the Cape is unique. I feel like we obviously need to adhere to whatever I just mentioned the state guidelines are. However, I think we can't treat our little town exactly as you know, some other hubs around Boston might, or towns around Boston or cities. So I think, you know, that's going to be a challenge for us. And I kind of wanted to also just touch on just quickly what the vacation rental industry has been doing for like the trends for the last 5 to 10 years. So as of today, we have made 50% of our bookings that we typically do. And this is a trend that has gone on for the last 5, 6, 7 years. So as of today, in a normal year, we would make another 50% of our bookings from here till the end of September. So right now we're halfway, and the number is exactly halfway as we normally would. The bulk of the people come here 4th of July, and then there's a lull, and then there's a 4-week period where it's totally crazy. You can't take your left-hand turn. That's like from July 15th to August 20th, really, is when the majority of the people come here. So it will be, I don't know what the answer is as far as stopping all short-term vacation rentals. The definition of a short-term vacation rental is anything under 31 days. as defined by Governor Baker. So the majority of our rentals are weekly or 2 or 3 weeks. So about 60% of our bookings are 7 days a week, a minimum. As you'll hear, Airbnb has a huge influence with the decision-making process and has the ear of many of the politicians. So their bookings are a lot different than ours. They're more of a 2, 3, 4 day kind of rental business model.
Kimberly, we're coming up on 3 minutes, so if you can just finish up your thoughts, please.
So the suggestion, I don't know, we could do something like we have half of our bookings. I don't know if we should cancel them all or not. We could keep what we have now, and then going forward, the other 50% limit it to a certain time frame, like a minimum of 3 weeks, a minimum of 2 weeks, a minimum of something. But I don't want to crush the inns and the resort areas either, because they don't do long term; they do days. So I just think we all have to be really mindful of the business owners, but again, the health of the community and the data is paramount. If we don't have a season, we don't have a season, because that's what the epidemiologists and all of the professionals are telling us. But I think going forward, if they don't, then there is a gradual way, and then we can control the flow of people by putting some stipulations in there for the short-term vacation rentals. So,
okay, Kimberly, thank you so
Thank
much. Very, very thought-provoking. Let's take another Zoom call.
We have Jennifer Connors. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Jennifer, thank you so much for participating in tonight's community forum.
Sure, thanks. You know, I don't have a whole lot of suggestions other than, you know, I think that we need to, as Kimberly said, be mindful of the impact, obviously, on the community. A lot of people are in the restaurant and rental vacation business. And I think that, you know, one thing that comes to mind is eating in restaurants. I don't know how you can do social distancing in a restaurant while wearing a mask or not wearing a mask and eating, using a bathroom. How do you contact someone who used the same bathroom in a restaurant with you 2 weeks ago? Again, keeping in mind that the virus is transmitted when you're asymptomatic, and the inadequate testing is an issue as well. So in light of that, sorry about my dogs in the background, I think that we should really only focus on takeout food, online ordering, paying ahead of time with credit cards and not cash in person, not face-to-face stuff. And in regards to the rentals, you know, I think Charlie Baker will come up with hopefully more concrete guidelines, but I don't know how you can clean adequately between clients on a 1 or 2 week basis. I think, you know, 3-4 week minimum for long-term rentals probably makes sense. So.
Okay, Jennifer, thank you so very much. Let's take another Zoom call.
We have Chatham Works. Go ahead, Chatham Works.
Sorry that it's me again. Just one quick perspective, and I don't know. I know the merchants have discussed this, and I don't know to what extent that it may be possible for the town to help with this at all. But if you're any small business owner and you've looked at trying to get basic supplies that you will need to reopen your business, like toilet paper, like gloves, like masks, all of that stuff, it's really hard to find. Cleaning supplies, basically all that stuff is extraordinarily difficult to find. So I don't know if there's a way that, some way to explore group purchasing or some other, or consolidating through a vendor or something. But I think pretty much to help local businesses do everything they can to provide a safe environment, that would be really helpful. And this another point which sort of goes beyond the concerns of this winter, but a longer term view. Again, I think the most important thing here is to live to fight another day. For many businesses, for a lot of businesses, if you have to operate at 50% capacity or less, and also you're going to have to spend a lot more on some things like cleaning and everything else, there's probably a decent number of businesses that, sure, you can get through the summer, but you lose money through the course of it, right? And obviously there's a lot of businesses here that live season to season. So I would just urge our elected leaders and anyone else with influence to try to encourage the folks in Boston and in Washington to look at places like the Cape differently than they would other markets, just because we are so heavily dependent on the seasonal economy. I think a lot of businesses here are going to need additional financial help. Community development partnership is, they're doing a letter with Julian Sear and Sarah Peak to leaders in Boston, trying to solicit some additional funding and stuff. But I'm sure that that's something that you guys are looking at. But I think one of the biggest concerns here is going to be in September and October when the summer's over, and kind of looking at where businesses stand at that point. Because unfortunately, I think as everybody suspects, it very well may not be very pretty. So thank you.
All right. Thank you again, Fred. Another Zoom call?
We have Marianne Lewis. Go ahead, Marianne.
Marianne, welcome.
Hi, I'm a full-time resident as well as a
Okay.
business owner in downtown Chatham.
Great.
My family owns 2 stores.
Okay.
A couple of quick things. I want about the closing off Main Street to traffic. I second the fact that the UPS and FedEx drivers are already working till 8 at night. You can't constrict their ability to deliver downtown. Perhaps if we felt an urge to, we could make Main Street one way from the Rotary to the Lighthouse. And then that would open up another lane for walkway, for a 2-way walkway. That could be an option if you felt that we had to do that, but I'm probably not totally on board with doing that. We've been in business for 20 years, and I just want everybody out there, as we form regulations, to understand that business owners, we care and love our customers. We care and love about our employees and our own family who works in these shops. And so we will do what we can and everything we can to keep everybody safe. So trust us. Don't overregulate us to death. Trust us that we know how to configure our stores to make everybody safe. And we are trying, at the last caller said that about the difficulty of getting cleaning supplies. We're trying, we're storing, we're getting it together. We've got plans. I think that there would be a better, smaller forum with business owners in the town to talk about things and ideas in rather, in a longer stretch, rather than just this compartment of this bigger town meeting. The other thing too is I would like the town to be prepared to change regulations weekly if numbers go up or numbers go down, to set something that's very restrictive. And let's say that there's hardly any visitors around or it's slower, well, then perhaps we can ease off. But to say that all businesses can only have 25% occupancy and then there's just nobody around, might be overly restrictive, or to tell people to not come downtown. It's just, there has to be a fine balance, and we just want to be part of the conversation.
Okay. Marianne, thank you so very, very much for eloquent words. Take another call on Zoom.
We have Susan. Go ahead, Susan.
Susan, welcome.
Hi, again. In regards to what the last woman said, I appreciate the fact that you think you can self-regulate, but unfortunately, as we all know, I would not trust anything coming out of Washington to tell us how to self-regulate. However, I think that you're looking at things. First of all, the bulk of the people who work in these businesses, and I realize that there are a few business owners who are speaking, and the rest are seasonal. The people who work at your stores are making $14 an hour. They're part of the working poor, which is the other demographic in town. And they do not have access to the same kind of health care that the wealthy do. We can't get airlifted out of here if there's a serious problem to Boston. That's something to consider. The other thing is that people don't do what they're required to do anyway. We can see it now. The largest percentage of people who are walking around without masks are college to 30. Used to be never trust anybody over 30. Now apparently it's never trust anybody under. So I don't think that trying to put ambassadors in place or the police, I think that you're really trying to set up a situation that isn't going to be feasible, because either you're going to create a problem and you're going to end up with authority figures having to step in. These people are, in a perfect world, people don't follow instructions. People don't stay off the dunes, or people don't, you know, when there's no parking, people will park on the beach. So I think you're asking people to do things that they may not be capable of doing. And I think if you pack the town with all these people, you're going to have a serious problem. I think one of the solutions is not having seasonal rentals. If the people who own second houses here want to come, that's one thing. That's okay. But I think if you're going to start having, you know, the level of tourism that we've had in the past, I think you're going to find that in September, you know, the numbers are going to be huge. And again, you have to decide, is it more important to have people alive, or is it important to have business? And, you know, fortunately, Massachusetts is a more responsive state than most. It actually allows you to get some sort of help if you're a small business owner or if you're an individual. And that's something to consider. You know, we're not Texas, we're not whatever we're a red state. So that counts too. And I think when you balance things, you have to look at that. You have to look at the lives of the people here and the infection rate. And just very quickly, you know, China is very suppressed, and they have to use things other than Facebook and YouTube to.
And Susan, we're getting close to 3 minutes, so if you could summarize. Thank you.
They have 4 cities now that are under lockdown in the second wave, and that's something. And people are waking up in Wuhan and finding their towns and their streets blocked by steel bars that have been put up. So there is evidence that there is a second wave. Something to think about.
Okay, thank you so much, Susan. You are participating tonight in Chatham's COVID-19 Community Forum. The third question is what we're focusing on right now, and that is, how do businesses and nonprofits operate effectively and safely? Let's take another Zoom call.
We have Sarah Jane Mason on the room. Go ahead, Sarah.
Sarah Jane, thank you. Thank you
Hello.
for participating.
Thank you for having us.
What's your affiliation with Chatham, Sarah?
Absolutely. I'm a year-round resident.
Okay.
I'm a part-time small business owner and also have a short-term rental.
Okay, great. Welcome.
Thank you. So, and this is kind of touching on exactly what we were just discussing, and I don't have a solution for it. But one of the biggest problems is who's going to regulate. If whatever we come up with as a town, you know, for regulations, who's mandating that? Who's in charge of that? For just an example, and just piggybacking on what the last 2 women said, you know, the other day down at Harding's Beach, I had an experience where someone had moved the barricade, and there were a ton of cars down at the second parking lot. Well, I put the barricade back and I pulled over, and just as a social experiment, just watched. And it hadn't even been 2 minutes. Somebody else pulled up, got out, analyzed the situation, and just made the decision to move it. And, you know, to decide that, yes, I'm going to not follow the directions and I'm going to go ahead and go down there. And that's just a prime example of, you know, what could be. I don't know if that person was a local or if that person was coming in from out of town. But, you know, we just can't trust people to follow directions and leave a big, you know, leave it wide open. So that was just my thing is I don't have a solution, and I know that together we're all going to come up with one. And I agree with what someone said previously about it needs to kind of be more like a week to week or every couple of weeks decision. It's not just something that's basic for the whole summer, because this is a constantly changing and ever evolving problem. But you know, just we can't even keep them out of the second beach at Harding's. So I mean, you know, just wondering, you know, how are we going to regulate if we're making all these rules? Who's going to be in charge of making sure that people are following directions? And also, I want to just give a little shout out to our community for we're coming up on 60 days of safety, and that is truly something to celebrate. So yay, Chatham. We're celebrating 60 days of safety, and I'm pretty proud of all of us for that. So
great. I think we all are. Thank you so much, Sarah. We have another call on Zoom.
We have Mary Rose Kavanaugh. Go ahead, Mary Rose.
Mary, welcome.
Thank you, Brad. So I'm Mary Kavanaugh. I'm with the Chatham Chamber of Commerce and Merchants Association. And I just wanted to let you all know that the merchants, we have been meeting and kind of discussing ideas. And we are going to be continuing to do that as we move forward. But one of the ideas that came up had to do with the traffic flow on Main Street. And we, or one of actually the merchants in town came up with the idea of having the traffic flow one way heading east on Main Street, and then be able to use the 2 parking lanes for walking, which would then enable businesses to bring goods outside and help with the social distancing of people. So that was one idea that we came up with.
Sure.
Also, just masks, signage. Try and have a sign at the beginning on the west end of Main Street by the Rotary, letting people know what is expected of them. And also the merchants have A-frame signs that they use for Mondays on Main. So we would be willing to put those out with signage messages, that whatever we come up with that we think should be on there that people should know. And also help our merchants, the chamber, print off laminated signage that everyone could be given for their businesses, so it's a consistent message throughout. So these are just some of the things that we've talked about.
Sure.
And we're open to more ideas. And I know someone mentioned maybe having a town group with key players to figure this all out. And I think that's a great idea, and I would be willing to assist with that as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I think everybody listening tonight would be, fascinated what the thoughts of the merchants and the chamber are, particularly for this issue about ensuring that businesses are effective and also open safely this summer. Okay. All right. Mary, thank you so very much. Let's take another call.
We have John Holgren on the line.
Okay, John,
ahead,
welcome. John, welcome to the community forum.
Good evening up there.
And
We hear you, John.
John, just let us know your affiliation with Chatham.
Yes, seasonal resident and seasonal business owner of Pleasant Forest Shores, the 2nd generation 6-unit cottage colony in South Chatham. So I do weekly rentals. I'm still in Clearwater, Florida, instead of being at the annual town meeting, which should have occurred tonight. And I'm not sure when I'm going to get there. But my concern is these people who are against the short-term rentals. Obviously, I've got a lot less people this year who are already, I've had some of my regulars who say, no, we're not going to come. But I need at least to have maybe 50% of my business to at least cover my expenses. I don't mind making, obviously I don't make, it's more of a hobby thing. I don't make that much money off the cottages, but I only need to at least cover my expenses. And that's what I'm concerned that some of these people are going to force me to not only not make any money, but lose money.
Okay.
And I have people who, it's a weekly rental. Obviously, they cannot, because of their work, they can't stay longer than a week. If they come less than a week, then it doesn't make sense for them to come. So, I don't know what to do. Obviously, I do have some people that come for a little bit longer, 2 or 3 weeks, but most people have been coming for 1 week, and that's all they can do. So, just wanted to,
Sure, John. Certainly an issue that we've got to deal with this summer. Thanks for participating tonight. Shauna, I'd like it if we can take a couple emails. I know we've gotten an awful lot this evening, so why don't you read a couple?
Sure. This one is from Kristen. She says she was born and raised in Chatham and owns Chatham Concierge. Her husband is active duty military, so currently living on a military base in Kansas. She says in regards to question 3, we have ID checks at the door at our commissary to limit the number of shoppers in the store at one time. I'm in support of that in general for all stores in Chatham if possible. I realize that that may be difficult in smaller sections on Main Street, but I think it's been effective here. She also said they have plexiglass at all cashiers, registers, checkouts on the base, and think that would be a good way for businesses to operate in Chatham. She also thinks that businesses could go cashless and take credit card payments only, so there is a limited exchange of paper. Clothing stores cannot allow clothing to be tried on, but may loosen return policies. She suggests putting in place some kind of cleaning requirement needed for all businesses, short-term rentals, hotels, etc., that can be monitored and reviewed on a weekly basis. The need for more cleaning, monitoring, etc., could help create some jobs where we have lost them as well. Also, that restaurants can work takeout in a way they do for in-dining reservations.
It's certainly a great way to be able to learn how other towns across in the region and the country are dealing with similar situations as Chatham will be this summer as well. Shauna, let's take another one.
Sure, I have an email from Taylor, who owns Fisherman's Daughter.
Okay, Taylor.
So some of the things that she suggests that would benefit businesses on Main Street would be to cancel all public events, including the 4th of July parade, band concerts, and Mondays on Main, secure disaster relief for businesses to cover rent and basic operating costs for 6 months, rope off all Main Street parking. If stores are able to reopen, we are going to need more space for customers to wait in lines outside of our businesses in order to remain 6 feet apart. She suggests establishing satellite retail tents in Kate Gould Park for businesses that do not have outdoor green space on their retail property. Suggesting the town could provide security, hand sanitizer stations, and monitoring of entrance and exit numbers for social distancing. Signage in all public areas, beaches, ponds, boat landings, parks, etc., explaining all current guidelines, including what to do or not to do when visiting Main Street. She also thinks that Chatham should consider preparing options for locals only access to at least one of the beaches and possibly a locals only boat ramp, because the town is going to be flooded with people hoping to enjoy those amenities.
Okay, thanks so much for that. Let's take one more, Sean.
Okay, from Mala, I believe it's pronounced. She says that, I believe it's a she, the board or town manager need to impress upon state officials the importance of a robust contact tracing system as it pertains to those vacationing on the Cape. There are apps available which could be looked at. These apps work automatically and only require the phone user to download the app. It says, parentheses, Australia plans to use one of these apps going forward called COVID Safe. And she said it would be important to look into something like this.
Okay, great. Very, very thoughtful ideas and concerns in that particular question. We're going to move on to the next question, the fourth question right now. But again, if you have other thoughts on the third question, which has to do with operating effectively and safely for businesses and nonprofits, please email communityforum@chatham-ma.gov. So let's move to question number 4, which is, how do we ensure that there is a clear understanding and enforcement of the established guidelines? How do we ensure there's a clear understanding and enforcement of the established guidelines? Shonda, let's take a couple emails.
Okay, this one is from Jessica, who writes, this is a difficult topic for me because we have had so many seasonal residents and visitors not follow the rules already that I do not believe that this summer will be any different. It will be worse because of the number of people that will be here. My family and I have been isolating and following the CDC government guidelines, but it's frustrating to see so many people not doing it, which means my family and I have to continue longer in this way while others get to enjoy this beautiful place we live in year round, but we do not. She says she feels that the town needs to enable the police to on the spot find people who are not following safety guidelines, such as wearing a mask, renting when it's not allowed, not socially distancing, etc. She asked, what good are the rules if there's no enforcement?
Okay, let's take another one too.
Okay.
Identifying some very key issues.
This is from Lynn. How do we ensure there is a clear understanding and enforcement of the established guidelines? Number 1, make the information clear and concise that this is the coronavirus, not the Chinese virus. Publish across as many platforms as possible. Provide 5x8 or 8.5 by 11 cards to all businesses for nonprofit businesses on the regulations, and instruct that the directions are posted for employees and another copy posted for the public. Ask businesses how many posters they want, because if the town can print, they can probably save a significant amount of money versus the business doing it on their own. Businesses should post everywhere: restrooms, dressing rooms, doors, near bars, etc. Include that if you are rowdy and rude, you will be subject to a fine of some amount of dollars. She ends by saying, we certainly do not want any issues such as what happened at Polar Cave Ice Cream to happen here.
Okay, let's take a third one.
This is from Andrew. Getting the word out to year-round and seasonal residents. We could do a marketing program, Chatham Healthy Summer, or Welcome to Chatham Summer 2020, ensuring a safe and healthy community for our residents and visitors. Suggest creating flyers for residents, seasonal taxpayers, visitors, mail, online, text alerts, article in the Cape Cod Times or Cape Cod Chronicle to alert residents of the change. Use signage typically used for traffic control to alert visitors to the area, using maps and FAQs. Flyers distributed to Airbnb proprietors, real estate agencies involved in rentals. Let the residents and visitors know that Chatham has a plan for 2020 to ensure a safe and healthy visit.
Great. Well, we're going to come back to emails in just a moment, but let's throw it open to our Zoom callers. Who do we have next?
We have Mike Watson. Go ahead, Mike.
Mike, welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for having this forum. It's a really good forum. I have been a proud summer resident or part-time resident of Chatham for almost 80 years. And I think what we're doing here is a very laudable thing. I'm a resident of New Jersey, and we're going through this right now. The New Jersey shore will be open. It'll be very well regulated by the police departments in each one of the communities. And each community is going to be different. They are, as an example, restricting beach badges, which are used at the Jersey Shore, to seasonal residents. If you rent your property out down there, you are allowed to allow your tenants to use the beach badge, which is a primary access to the enjoyment of the Jersey Shore. And I think we could probably do the same thing in Chatham. Summer rentals, short-term rentals, are the lifeblood of the economy of Chatham. And frankly, they are probably a lot safer than hotel rooms, if you think about it. People, families will come in, stay at the property, go to the beach, go to the store, and cook at home, rather than tainting, if you will, the public areas of town. In town, they can use takeout in restaurants rather than going into the buildings, and that will help. But anyone who goes into town needs to have a mask. And each public entity, restaurant or store, needs to have a sign in the window that says, no mask, no entry. We have that here in New Jersey. We've gone through the pandemic and we're on the backside of this thing, and it's working very well. The stores are open. Some large stores like Costco has limits on the number of people that will go in. And they have stationed in front of the store, not security guards, but employees who spray down either the little trucks, or everyone needs to have a mask. And in some environments, they need to have gloves to go in. But at the end of the day, we have successfully, I think, gone through the first hurdle of this. And we're going to open the beaches down at the famous Jersey Shore. Chatham's economy is 10 weeks. If you shut down the short-term rentals, you need to shut down the hotels. You shut down the hotels, you shut down the restaurants and every retail store in town. And the people will remember that, and they will not come back next year. So you simply can't afford to shut the system down. You need to take precautions, organized precautions, and I think the police can manage that. Certainly, any summer police that we used to have a lot of can help that out at the parking lots at Harding's Beach or up at the lighthouse.
Mike, we're coming up on 3 minutes, so if you can just give us your closing thoughts.
And I wish you well. I'll be there in a few days.
Okay, we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much, sir. We're giving stakeholders their opportunity to express their concerns, comments, and we had some fantastic ideas tonight, really out of the box, of how to balance safety with and health concerns with getting Chatham ready for the summer season. Let's take another Zoom call.
We're going to go a little bit out of order here. Alex B., you're up next. Alex, go ahead.
Okay, Alex.
Hey, good evening to the town of Chatham.
Good evening, Alex.
Long time visitor. I deal in the cybersecurity space globally. Unfortunately, you guys are branded with your own success. You guys are a top 5 destination for the Northeast, let alone probably a top 10 destination for the country domestically. I travel on my vacations from Booth Bay all the way out to Laguna and Malibu. And you guys are always a spot where I've made a lot of friends, never had a negative experience, and have spent a lot of money with the businesses and the restaurants. And as I go to sales conferences throughout the country, I always tell somebody that they have to pop into the Chatham's Bar Inn for a weekend or a martini or get a burrito at the corner store. With this being said, I've dialed into similar calls across the country, and I guess my call to battle or call to arms for the town of Chatham is you guys have to leverage your network and bring the best and brightest of the community and their networks, regardless if they're in Chatham or they're across the country, because you guys are a few weeks behind planning for Memorial Day weekend. And to Mark, who just spoke out of New Jersey, I want to go down there this summer. I'm in downtown Boston. I'm involved with local politics up here, dealing with policies at the 50,000 foot level don't resonate at the local storefront or the local, beach. So anything that I can do to add value to speed up and make sure that's a prosperous and safe summer for the town of Chatham, please let me know, because again, as a previous caller added, people will find it somewhere else to go down the coast. And I'd hate to see Chatham fall out of the top 5 rankings as a destination for people across the country, let alone across the world.
Great. Alex, thanks for a very distinct perspective on your part. Thank you so much. Let's take another Zoom call.
I'm going to go to Robert Wood.
Robert?
Hello,
Welcome.
this is actually Noreen Wood. Thank you.
All right, Noreen, welcome back.
So I love all the ideas. I had some suggestions as we're sitting here.
Sure.
On the short-term rentals. Would it be possible to consider maybe the tenants signing documents as part of their lease that states that they're aware they're coming into a town that's trying to maintain and control coronavirus, and as such, masks will be asked and mandatory if there's a way that we can police that, which I have an idea on that as well. Social distancing and masks will be asked. If you don't comply, you could be fined. However, I think we need to sort of make it sort of fun and airy. Each of the shops sells some masks. Maybe the masks have shark faces on them. Maybe the Chamber of Commerce provides some masks for free. Maybe some of the talented people in town make masks, and each of the shops gets to sell their own masks. It's a way to bring in more revenue. We can still do it around the whole idea of the shark thing. Perhaps we get the National Guard, don't know if that's too much, or maybe the Coast Guard to help us. The police are going to need help, because I do believe that most people want to do the right thing. And I do believe that most people will try to comply. There's always a few idiots. I'm sorry, there is. And unfortunately, we struggle with it with the younger folks. They don't get the seriousness of this. And, we don't want to come down hard. We want to make it fun and airy and light. But you come to Chatham, it's going to be a face mask party. We're going to be social distancing. Yeah, we've got sharks, we've got face masks, come on down. And I think at the registers here in Virginia, what we're seeing is they're putting plexiglass up. I know another gentleman mentioned this from New Jersey. We go to check out at our grocery stores, all of our registers there's a piece of plexiglass in front of the person who's you're dealing with to check out on your, putting your credit card in the machine, or people are not really doing cash, they're using credit card mostly, but they're behind plexiglass sneeze shields or whatever it is, what they're calling them. And I think that's going to become pretty common. So again, I go back to, I think we must try to control social distancing and try to, as best we can, mandatory face masks. I think if we make it fun and light and airy and make it a marketing spin and come to Chatham, it's going to be great. It's going to be different. It's going to be different, but you're going to wear a face mask, and there's going to be all different kinds of face masks you can buy. People get involved, you know, again, just trying to find a way to lighten up this very negative, painful time for all of us and not hurt our shopkeepers and not hurt our short-term rental owners or the businesses that need these rentals.
Noreen, thanks for your thoughts and thank you for your enthusiasm as well. Very, very enthusiastic. Let's take another Zoom call.
We have Betty Quigley.
Betty, welcome.
Hi,
Hello.
how are you all?
Hello, Betty. Very well. Betty, what's your affiliation to Chatham?
Well, I have a home on Queen Anne Road next to Gunther's wonderful residence there. And I've owned this home since 2005.
Okay.
And I have permanently moved to this town as of August 2018.
Okay.
And I'm a year-rounder, but I do rent seasonally. So I have experience from a lot of different perspectives.
Great.
And as I've been watching tonight, number one, I've been thinking, because we were also a small business owner in our previous chapter, one, are the landlords in our wonderful town doing anything to help our small businesses? That was my first thing. The second thing, as a seasonal renter, and I've heard from all of my guests who come every year, and I've offered them 2021 because I want them to have a great experience. I don't want them to give up on this town, and I want them to come back. And so I've said to them, wherever we are, come back in 2021 so you have the perfect experience. And then the third thing that, as I'm listening to you all talk about making adjustments, I said to my husband that if I did have guests who wanted to come this summer, would I ask them to sign a waiver so that they comply with all the ordinances that are going to be in place in Chatham? And if they are cited, that their security would go to the Chamber of Commerce to distribute to the small businesses of our town.
Okay. Certainly give raised some great questions, Betty. Anything further?
No, that was
Okay.
it. Just a bunch of
Okay.
ideas for you
That's
all
great.
to ponder.
Fantastic. Keep them coming. Thank you so very much. By the way, if you prefer to email your thoughts tonight, please email at communityforum@chatham-ma.gov. That's communityforum@chatham-ma.gov. And we're going to be reading a few more in just a few minutes. But let's take another Zoom call. Who do we have next?
We have Mary Valerie Plaster. Go ahead,
Okay.
Mary.
Mary, welcome to the Community Forum.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you.
I live in Dallas,
Okay.
but we have a little house on Versus Byway named Chatterbox.
Okay.
And Noreen's my neighbor.
Okay.
My neighbor. But what I was going to say is whatever rules that we come up with, they need to be not optional. Because I think that when you give optional rules, it just causes so much confusion. Here in Dallas, it's optional if you want to wear a mask, and then there's a lot of trouble in the grocery stores. So I think if you're going to wear a mask, it just needs to be mandatory that whatever rules we make should be simple, clear, concise, and mandatory. And I also think that if you do that, it will bring a lot of unity to the community because both sides are going to have to give. Everybody is not going to get what they want. So if everyone will agree that we're going to have this unity and we're going to come together and be gentle and kind to one another as we go through, something that we've never been through before. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so very much, and thank you for your thoughtful words. Let's take another call on Zoom.
We have Steve Buckley. Go ahead, Steve.
Steve, welcome back.
Okay, thank you. The thought I have about understanding and enforcement of established guidelines, and I think that kind of raises the issue, is that guidelines are just recommendations. So the idea, there's a misunderstanding right there that you can enforce a guideline. There's need to do, which are orders, and nice to do, which is guidelines. And so there's a confusion about, what's right now about what those things are. The governor did provide suggestions that we use face masks, and then it was an order. And so I think if people understand what that is, and as that changes over the course of the next few months, there needs to be a way for people for that word to get out. And you can't tell people to go check out the website. It needs to be an email alert. It needs to be a text alert. It can't just be the, phone everybody who has a landline in Chatham. It needs to be more, and somebody else did touch on this, about the idea of using other channels that are not being used now and that have never been used. But now with the technology, including something like this with Zoom, we can collaborate. This is collaboration software. And so this first step of brainstorming and getting all these ideas is great, but we need to continue to use this technology, take advantage of the minds. I think Alex B said a little while ago, you need to leverage the people in the community, because there's always more wisdom outside the room than there is inside the room. And to reach out and be able to figure out, what are we going to do about Main Street? What are we going to do about the beaches? What are we going to do about this? We need to be nimble. We don't have time to use the regular time frames as we have in the past. This is moving too quickly. And I think it was somebody else there who said, yes, Marianne Lewis said, we should be able to adjust as conditions change. So this is going to be the new normal. It won't be the regular time frames. It's going to be a lot faster as far as figuring out what to do when. And the only other thing is that, so if there was a particular group that's more than just the Board of Selectmen and the town manager trying to figure out how to do public engagement, bring in people like yourself, Brad, but others, not just one company, one person trying to shepherd this. And the other part is that I had the idea that if there were volunteers for the Board of Health, so that's what I've been told. When people have a problem, they see people doing something, they call the police, and the police turn to the Board of Health, but then the Board of Health shows up. If there were people like in neon green shirts and neon green masks and neon green hats that said Board of Health, then those could be the helpers that people could turn to and say, hey, I want to make sure I do the right thing. Can I do this? Can I do that? And ask somebody before, instead of being a bouncer type of thing. So I think that might be a way to allow people, because if we're all in this together, then there has to be something that we can do besides just giving 3 minutes at the microphone.
Okay, great recommendations. Thanks so much, Steve, for that thoughtful responses. Let's take another Zoom call.
We have Heather McGrath. Go ahead, Heather.
Heather, welcome to the COVID-19 Community Forum.
Thank you very much. I'm calling to reiterate what Mary said earlier. Our merchants group, which I'm a member of the Chatham Merchants Association, and I own Simpler Pleasures. We all have talked a lot about this and how we can keep people safe, but still be able to run our businesses to some degree. And I'm one of the ones who came up with this map idea of Main Street. So we've already drawn out kind of how it could work. And I feel strongly that it should be a one-way street starting at the Rotary and going out to shore. We're lucky enough to have such a beautiful town with great roads that can work to this end by limiting one direction traffic and moving slowly with a single lane in the center that moves straight. The second lane on the right would be where people can drop people off only, but no parking. And that would open up both sides of the street parking areas for movement in one direction on the right going toward the lighthouse, with clear marking of footprints or whatever to show that that's now a walking space. That would then free up the sidewalk on that side and on the other side for those businesses. And then people could move across the crosswalks. There should be clear indication where they can cross and where they shouldn't. and they can come the other direction down the other side. And there's more than enough space to do that and allow people to move freely and slow the traffic down. And if they want to bail out, they have Seaview Street, they have Chatham Bars Ave, they have Cross Street, and they can just loop around and come back in and pick up whoever they dropped off. I think we can do it if we have a working group together to help make the Main Street work safely and more efficiently.
Yeah,
And I'm happy to be on that group.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of thinking is going on to address the issues for that downtown area.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you so very, very much. Let's take another Zoom call.
We have Sally Hurst. I believe that's correct. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Sally.
Sally, welcome.
Hi, I am calling because I am an immunocompromised senior citizen who has lived in Chatham, permanent resident of Chatham.
Okay, welcome.
And I just want to say a couple things. I think that everything what you said about the businesses is absolutely true. And it'd be nice if we could do that every other year too, have more pedestrians on the sidewalks, etc. I'd also like to say that my concerns maybe are a little bit different. And that is that, within the past couple of days, there are 600 workers at both Cape Cod Hospital and Falmouth Hospital who have been furloughed for a month. Our health system, and that's because of financial reasons, our health system is already strained. And especially if we have a second wave, it will continue to be. And also there are lots of people who haven't gone to the emergency room because they're afraid to go to the hospital. Also, if I don't go to the grocery, I always wear a mask if I'm outside of my house, and it's impossible almost to get a delivery from one of the stores. It is, I can do a drive-by occasionally. My husband goes out and does that. But it's not easy. So we stay in our property, we walk in the neighborhood, we wear a mask, we Zoom with friends. We haven't been with other people for at least 8 weeks. This summer, even if our grandchildren come, they're 10, 8, and 4, we won't go to any band concerts. We won't go to any parades. I am not going to expose them to anything. And one person mentioned this new illness for children. So I don't want to do that. The other thing is that I automatically expect goodwill from other people. And I think that should be emphasized, that we are not enforcing something. It's something that we simply expect people to be human and humane and do the right thing in this situation. And we need to support that point of view. And one person said, my mask, your life, which I think is an important thing to remember. I think townwide, we have to remember, we have to wear face masks. We have to do social distancing. We should not have large gatherings. We should be very careful about how we behave, be courteous, be kind, and be good. And I think all of the suggestions which have been made today are good ones. And I think enforcement is key.
Okay. Well, Sally, has been great. Use some great words of be courteous, be kind, and goodwill. Everybody loves those. Thank you so very, very, very much for participating tonight. Let's take another Zoom call, and then we're going to go to some emails.
We have Ashley Beldo, I believe it's pronounced. Go ahead, Ashley.
Ashley, welcome.
Oh.
We have Ashley?
Hold on one second. There you go. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Ashley.
Hi. Thanks so much for having this meeting. I really appreciate you and all of the participants. I've heard some really great things. But I've also run into a lot of summer residents, which is, I would say probably about 80% of my business. And a lot of negative energy is coming from locals to summer residents, leaving, like.
Ashley, are you a merchant in town? Just wanted to identify.
So, I should introduce myself. I own All Points Beautiful in Chatham.
Okay.
I went to Chatham Elementary as a girl. My family owned Bass River Optometrics, so we have been in business in Chatham for over 60 years as a collective.
Right.
So I love this town. I've been making face masks out of recycled materials that haven't sold. So I've been trying to like give back to the community and doing things like that. I've been participating like in social distancing and, rearranging my space so it, can accommodate merchant, anybody that comes in safely if I decide to open. I was talking to a colleague today and, that's obviously up in the air. But I think what I want to kind of get across is that as a collective, I really hope that we can keep up a sense of positivity and inclusiveness, that we're all in this together. um I hate hearing from someone, like, I love my customers, like I love my clients, I love them so much, but to hear that they've had negative, hate messages on their windshields, left, coming to their homes, it's just unacceptable. And I think as a collective, what we could do, instead of being angry, because of course there's anger that comes up in this for all of us, of course, like we're scared. Maybe having like a conscious idea of like, okay, well, instead of being angry, well, what are some solutions that we can give? And maybe have a printout list or something like that. But I know, there's Rory's Market in Dennisport that they'll deliver for free to people that can't, leave their homes. I really want to support, safe social distancing and quarantining for those summer residents that are coming back, and give them like what I'm doing. I don't want to be like, oh, hey, go to Instacart. Like, that's great. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to send them to what I'm not doing. So, maybe we can all come up with our favorite suggestions of like how to do this nicely. And, I also heard, I also want to second the fact that like, as a collective, like we should have the freedom to run our businesses the way that we see fit. Like as far as like health code and things like that, we should all do what we feel safe doing.
Sure. And Ashley, if you just want to finish up your final thoughts,
And
we're
the
just going
last
through.
thought would be that there's the space in front of the triangle. There's a triangle right in front of my store where the street could actually be shut down for that little amount of space. And I would highly encourage that to be utilized as an outdoor selling area. So
Okay. All right, great. Thanks so much. Great out of the box ideas. All right, Shonda, let's take some emails. I know we've gotten an awful lot of them tonight. So let's see the responses to question number 4, which is, how do we ensure there's a clear understanding and enforcement of the established guidelines? Shauna?
Sure. Here's one from Sean, who writes, as much as it might pain some people, I think that towns and municipalities should use state direction, but ultimately operate independently and do what's best for their own residents and business owners. For Chatham, I think that means operating on a normal basis and let people act on their own and make their own decisions based on their risk tolerance.
Okay.
From
Read
Kurt,
another one. Read another one,
Kurt,
Kurt.
he suggests to get the word out using electronic messaging boards and posted signage. I also have from Anne. She has a rather lengthy email, but let me just give you a
Pick out the
couple of
highlights.
bits.
Sure.
As many do not even know how to access the town website, a weekly update on the front page of the Chronicle all summer would inform the public, both tourists and residents. The CDC ground rules suggest towns must educate their public and supply all the COVID-related data, deaths, positive tested patients, hospitalizations, recoveries, phone numbers to call for emergency help, etc. So far, Chatham has been lucky with low infected numbers. That will actually be the best advertisement for a successful summer season for all our businesses in town when and if we can open them all. Chatham website COVID-19 link should also be listed weekly in the Chronicle. All of the above mentioned information should be available via the Chamber of Commerce apps. She also suggests signs and flyers with the COVID-19 guidance regulations should be posted, starting with exit ramp for 137 and including all open businesses, municipal buildings, harbor master buildings, and other marine-related buildings, DPW, cemeteries, churches, museums, clubhouses, VFW, Airport and Chamber of Commerce. Governor Baker's $300 fine for no masks is in essential places of businesses should be listed on all signs that should act as enforcement enough, although police and health agent can also implement tickets. No warning should be given as the paperwork becomes too problematic.
Well, it certainly, everybody feels, communications of whatever the established guidelines are going to be, is going to be absolutely required in order to be able to make sure that everybody coming to town understands what the guidelines are going to be. So let's go now to question number 5, our last question tonight, which is, what else do we need to consider? And again, that could be a general question, so you can comment on absolutely anything, something new, something that we've already, one of the questions we've had tonight. And particularly, I know that there were plenty of people who had a lot of comments on the public gatherings that we weren't able to get to. So if you'd like to be able to call in now or email, now's the time. What else do we need to consider? And let's start off, Shauna, with an email.
Sure, this is from Nancy and Stu. Personally, we think short-term rentals should not be allowed this summer. This brings in too many people who will not be willing to quarantine for 14 days before venturing out. We know this will hurt Chatham terribly, but until there's a vaccine, we think this is necessary. We know second homeowners cannot be stopped from coming here, but we do hope they are respectful of others. We have driven by Lighthouse Beach many times recently and have not seen much evidence of social distancing and/or people wearing masks to a great extent. This will only be worse in the hot summertime when people come to have fun, eat out, shop, etc. Our other concern is that supermarket shelves are continuing to be sparse and meats are not as available as a week ago, and we worry what will happen with more people here.
Okay, let's take a couple more emails, Shauna.
Okay, from John. We have to have some economic life, but balance has to be thoughtful around physical health, mental health, risk, and equity. For the beaches, for example, what about an odd even day license plate plan and 3-hour limits? And we not only have to think about Chatham, but the adjacent towns, because what Harwich, Orleans, and Brewster do has an impact on Chatham. If we open our beaches and they close theirs, imagine the consequences.
Okay, let's take one more, and then we're going to go to our Zoom calls on this.
Let's see, from Janet. I'd like to ask whether the town is considering moving back to holding live meetings and hearings for town boards, commissions, and the like. And if so, I'd like to know whether before that happens, there will be a plan developed to allow for more remote participation in addition to live participation for those members of the boards, applicants, and members of the public who do not feel comfortable attending in person. Many members of town boards will not be willing to attend in person, even if social distancing procedures are put in place. So it will be necessary to integrate remote participation with in-person participation.
Certainly identifies a key issue for the great participation of town boards and town committees in the town of Chatham, is how do we go forward to get that involvement and further the progress of the town. Let's take some Zoom calls on this now. Again, question number 5 is, what else do we need to consider?
Okay, we have someone on an iPhone. I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Hello.
There you go.
And who's
Hello?
this? Who's this?
Steve.
Steve.
Steve Clayton.
Steve, what's your affiliation with Chatham, Steve?
Well, I'm a full-time resident of Chatham.
Okay, very good.
And I got something a little bit out of the box that you might consider.
Throw us out of the box. Go ahead.
It has to do with safety and putting people at ease at the same time and getting information. And my thought is to be a little bit more passive about the whole situation. And the idea is if we could set up some kind of a tent that we could take people's, either their temperature or possibly if there's swabs available for a quick check, and have that in the, like maybe in the park. And it would be free to anyone that would volunteer to do that. And you could have volunteers running it, maybe just a few people. And when someone came in and took their temperature or a test, we would give them maybe a little bracelet with a collar on for the day. And that way they could walk around town and people would feel a little more relaxed that at least these people took some kind of a test, didn't appear to have any problem. And also, as the people leave, they could probably be handed out a flyer that would communicate anything, information we wanted to give them about the town and how to maneuver through the town, and also possibly ask them for a donation. So at the same time that you're helping the people, the donation would help the town. And also for retail outlets, they have a lot of new things now, and one of them is the UVC lights. Retailers for very inexpensively could close the store for 15 minutes, have a couple of 2 to 3 UVC lights, and disinfect their place of business. At least temporarily, it would be disinfected. Take 15 to 20 minutes, depending. Some of the lights are from 3 watts, but you can buy them up to 60 watts for under $100. And it would put people at ease. It would clean their shop. You might even have the towns could get together and buying these things at a low price. Or maybe another idea would be to get a real expensive one and just take it from business to business, close down for a half hour, disinfect your shop, go on to the next one. And the businesses could advertise that they are doing this and put people at ease. So there are a lot of things out of the box that not too expensive and all voluntary and possibly might help.
Great, Steve. We'll look for new ways to think and act differently. So thank you so very much.
Okay.
Let's take the next Zoom call.
We have Brian Vocal on the line. Go ahead, Brian.
Brian, welcome to the community forum this evening.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. I'm a business owner downtown of Mahi Gold, and I just wanted to just touch base and make sure that, as you're doing tonight, as you consider to make these regulations under a quick turnaround.
We lose Brian?
I believe we lost Brian's
We lost
audio.
Brian. Do we want to come back to him in a moment?
We can come back to him.
Okay.
Or put him back in the queue.
All right. Why don't we take another call, Brian? We'll get back to you, make sure we have the audio back. Let's take another Zoom call.
We have Ann Strout.
Ann, welcome to the community forum this evening.
Brad, thank you for hosting. It's good to see everybody. Under the category of other, and I'll start by self-identifying as a full-time year-round employee in the town of Chatham. And this is more of an observation, Brad. I have seen and heard a contingent of people on here, a majority, in my opinion, who are homeowners and business owners. And I just would comment that I regret that it seems that the population of full-time year-round employees are not well represented on this call. And I just would hope that those collection of constituents are also taken into consideration when we're talking about all of these matters. Thank you.
And certainly this has to do with every stakeholder in the town of Chatham. So absolutely excellent point, Ann. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Do we have Brian back?
Brian, do we have you back?
I hope so.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Right. So I said I have a business downtown, Mahi Gold. As you guys have been doing all night, I just want to make sure that we are considering all stakeholders, as it was just reiterated. The deck has already been stacked against us. Our business has been devastated in a lot of different ways. Without even coming upon the summer season, we have a wholesale business that was completely shut down for the last 2.5 months. Our supply chains have been completely devastated because we do all of our manufacturing in the U.S. So as we continue to try and overcome these obstacles, as part of the business community, we just want to make sure that personally that as we get the regulations from the state, we're not adding to those to further hinder our ability to run our business. If anyone cares about the safety and making our customers feel good, it's us. We can't afford another outbreak. We can't afford. So anything that allows us to open our doors, we will do everything we can to make sure that, we're providing a safe environment for our customers. And at some point, we have to allow the public to trust us when we have to allow ourselves to trust the public. People need to make their decisions. I won't employ or force someone to work that's not comfortable. But if someone wants a summer job, I want to be able to provide it. My wife is pregnant. I've got 2 young kids. This is our livelihood. And if you give me a tent in a park, I won't have a business in September. You give me a tent at Veterans Field, that's not a solution. That's a further hindrance. And it's not a one solution for all. I have a 3,600 square foot store, which, is going to be a lot different than an 800 square foot store. We can't have a policy that further says, X amount of people in the store. My rent is a lot different and my payables are a lot different than someone else's. And my ability to run my store one way versus someone else's store their way, it's all different. We have to have an open-minded approach to this. We want to ensure the best possible summer for everyone. We know it's going to be a different summer. We're trying our best to plan our business, but we're not getting any guidance from the state. We already have a short window to run our business, and any further changes and things that are laid out from our local government that kind of handcuffs us a little bit more, it just creates more difficulty for us as a business owner. And you have to think about these businesses that aren't generating revenue. Everything that you're asking us to do and implement, it's more costs. You're asking us to increase our cost basis. And obviously we want to do the things that are necessary to create a comfortable environment, but the customer is going to determine if they're comfortable. They're not going to come into my store if they're not comfortable. And all these things that you might ask us to do, it's more money that has to be invested in our business. And we're already doing our best to survive. We don't know what we're going to look like in September, but I would implore the local government to do what you can to support the guidelines that we are handed. Do what you can to give us the opportunity to help survive and make it to 2021 in the summer that we want to have back. But don't do any more to hinder us. Otherwise, a family like us that is fully invested in this business and in this community that tries to give back the way we have to Chatham, because it means so much to us, we won't be here next summer. And that's a fact. That's not a reality. I mean, that's something we go to bed and we think about every night is, what are we going to look like as a family? What do we do with our 2 young kids and, a baby on the way? How do we survive this? And when you think about everyone, whether it's old or young, who's affected by this, you need to consider us too, and who we are and our family and what we're trying to do as a business, just as much as anyone else in this dynamic.
Great, Brian, thank you so much for expressing those very serious concerns. Thanks so much for participating tonight. Let's take another Zoom call.
Okay, we have Stephen Buckley again.
Stephen, welcome back.
Okay. Yeah, and a lot have been said about Main Street, but I had an idea about Lighthouse Beach.
Sure.
I know Dr. Duncanson has said that, as far as I remember, that as far as going up and down the staircase there, that it shouldn't be a health problem, at least from what I remember him saying, that if it's just momentary that you pass by somebody. But I think that to allay the fears of many people, that's not going to be good enough, or might not be aware of what his guidance is. But I was going to suggest that there be somebody at the top and somebody at the bottom, like I said, maybe volunteers that do the same thing that we do when there's road construction. Have a little sign, everybody goes this way down one lane, and then they hold up sign, stop. And so basically people can go down without going past other people. Another group can go up as they're leaving. And that, I think, might address people's concern about going to Lighthouse Beach. If they think that, if their concern is that they don't want to walk past somebody who's huffing and puffing on the way up the stairs. So that's just a thought.
Okay, very, very good thought, Steve. Okay, let's take another Zoom call.
Brad, I believe we have some emails from Shauna to
Okay,
read.
Shauna, let's read those. Go ahead.
Okay, from Carolyn, we have, can the realtors in Chatham provide masks for their renters for the duration of their stay, in addition to renters signing a lease clause, understanding they have to wear a mask in public? Can the DPW put out more trash barrels for gloves, masks, and everything else? Then we have from Sue, year-round resident. Daughter has been a lifeguard for 4 years. She is specifically in charge of swim lessons at Oyster Pond. How do we see this working this year? Also, Sue is an assistant teacher at the elementary school and an after-school teacher at Monomoy Community Services. If the state opens up and people can go back to work, how are we envisioning childcare? We also have from April, please open Chatham. We implore you to save jobs and mental health. From Denise, her parents live in River Bay. They're in their late 80s and doing well independently. However, even now they cannot go out to the grocery store due to health concerns, and curbside pickup has a wait list of 60 people in front of them at Chatham Village Market. The problem is big. We family members off Cape have been bringing them groceries from off Cape to protect their health. With the influx of visitors, vacationers, they will still remain isolated. If you decide to open up, I hope you will step up outreach to the seniors. Senior Center can please do more outreach to the town seniors. And then this is from Robert.
Okay, Robert.
In general, we should protect our vulnerable seniors, then begin to reduce social isolation to mitigate the adverse health consequences of loneliness and neglected medical care, as well as prevent local economic devastation. Chatham should be open for business, even if it requires home rule protection, to create policies and practices that advance that goal, especially if the governor proposes a one-size-fits-all solution.
Okay.
Brad, we have Jeff Shaw. He's been trying to make a comment.
All right, Jeff.
Unmute him.
Jeff, welcome.
Go ahead. Make sure we got him there. Go ahead, Jeff.
Welcome,
everybody.
Jeff.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Jeff, a summer resident. And I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity and really just a quick comment. To the degree possible, at least for the town-run services, if they can consider, sort of the online quote-unquote tea time that golf courses usually use for, say, going to the dump, literally going to play golf at Seaside Links. Again, if we're trying to focus on some of the recreational opportunities and just being able to keep social distancing and preventing crowds, and really just to keep in regular feedback with the business community. I know the suggestion earlier about a separate roundtable that could be really helpful, just to kind of really dig deeper into their concerns, especially the one that the gentleman from Mahi Gold raised. I'm thinking outside for everything, but it's not simple. It's not as simple as that. So again, thank you, everybody. Be safe, and hope to see you this summer.
Thank you so much, Jeff. You as well. Do we have any other Zoom calls? Any other Zoom calls? All right, let's have a couple more emails.
Okay.
Shauna?
From Denise. Like most town meeting participants, I am over 65. For this year, can we have a mail-in ballot town meeting? We need to look out for the safety of our older population. Let's see. From Kristen. While I was watching the community forum, someone mentioned using an app. It immediately made me think of the Sharktivity app that the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy uses for sighting alerts. If someone could talk to them about who developed that app, maybe we could develop a similar one that summer residents, and visitors can or would have to download for all COVID information.
Very interesting idea. Okay, and why don't you read one more, Shauna?
Okay, let's see. Pick a good one, right?
Pick a good one. They're all good. They're all good. They're all great.
All right, let's see. From Jackie. My husband and I are full-time residents of Chatham. We are very concerned for our community, especially with the influx of summer visitors coming up. Thank you for holding this forum. We've been pleased with the majority of input we've heard tonight. Most people are siding on the side of safety. A concern is for our first responders, eliminating events that draw big crowds to keep our first responders safe. Should they agree with the suggestions of walking one way on each side of the street downtown and no parking on the streets downtown to provide more space for distancing? Arrows could be spray painted on the sidewalks to indicate the correct direction. For question 5 specifically, the town needs to provide better info to residents on current regulations, town meetings, and other pertinent info. It needs to be provided to all residents either by mail or email. Also, the town should be providing more info and updates on the number of COVID cases in Chatham, active cases, recovered cases, total cases, with updates as they happen, not just once a week. Short-term seasonal rentals should not be allowed or at very least discouraged.
Okay. Well, 3 hours goes so quickly, doesn't it? I want to thank you all for your participation and for your very thoughtful feedback, your expressing your concerns and some really great out of the box creative ideas. All the calls tonight and all the emails are going to be summarized and forwarded to the Board of Selectmen for their review. And if you have any more thoughts or suggestions over the next couple of days, please email communityforum@chatham-ma.gov. That's communityforum@chatham-ma.gov, as we will keep it open through Wednesday, May 13th. So I want to thank you all for participating tonight. Fantastic thinking went into your expressing your concerns and ideas. I wish you a good night. I hope that you stay safe. I will now turn the forum over to Shireen Davis, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, for closing comments.
Brad, thank you so much for facilitating this meeting. And I just want to thank the staff that has worked in the background, Shauna and Craig and Terry and the Channel 18 crew. There's a lot here that we heard tonight, a lot to unpack, a lot to discuss going forward. I think we understand the need for consistency, yet flexibility, safety. We need to be mindful of our resources and what we're actually capable of as a community. I saw that there were 390 at one point on this Zoom meeting. That's an amazing amount of folks. Again, emails are welcome up until the 13th, and we look forward to reading each and every one of them. Before we close up, I just wanted to turn to my board to see if they had any further comments about tonight, brief comments, and then we'll take a roll call, or I'll take a motion to adjourn. So, Selectman Kokolas, do you have any comments that you'd like to say right now?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm gonna reiterate a couple things you said. I want to thank everyone who's participated. It was outstanding. Again, Brad, always do a great job. Our IT guys and Shauna and Terry, thank you very much. I think it's what I've heard here too. It's an important consideration that we be consistent with well, we're going to have federal, state, and especially our regional regulations of sort. This is about Chatham, and this is about our residents, our businesses at Chatham, and I agree with our visitors, and I agree that we are different. I think that I heard also that it's safety first, but we have to consider economic viability. I read something this afternoon. I'll paraphrase it. It has to do with if we have to solve. They called it the biology, but you have to solve the virus problem, and if you can't do that, then we won't solve our long-term economic issues. But that doesn't mean we can't have a process that'll take us to that. It's not turning a switch on, it's a process. And I believe we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Corey, do you have any thoughts? Final thoughts?
Sure. No, first of all, I want to thank Brad for moderating this evening. All the public that has either submitted questions, called in, have viewed this for future comments collectively. I think this is a good tool to help stir up a lot of community discussions. I'm a member of the board. I've got 4 kids in the Modern Boy school system. I've been a merchant this is actually my 20th summer owning a little shop on Main Street. So, I see these issues through various different lenses. I'm eager to, I think as any merchant, I'll put my merchant hat on for a moment. I'm eager to open, but I know safety is by far the number one factor we've got to address because we can't shortchange that. But I do think whatever plans we do put in place, we do have to have some kind of equitable plan, because for most of us downtown, we're so used to working within the parameters of our own shops. and current situations are going to now, put us out into the public spaces, and we got to figure out a plan that's going to be safe for everyone, equitable, and give some kind of economic boost to us at some point in time. But I think there's a lot of good suggestions out there. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting some of our advisory committees involved in some of these discussions if time allows. But I do thank and appreciate all the comments that were made tonight, and I hope everyone's to stay safe.
Thank you, Corey. Selectman Nicastro, any final thoughts?
Thank you, Shireen. I also want to thank all those who participated with their very thoughtful and incisive comments. I want to commend Brad on his typically admirable style of moderating. I want to thank you, Madam Chair, and the town manager for putting this together, and Craig and the IT staff. I think Terry was involved also for really a wonderful presentation tonight. Obviously, we have two goals that have been articulated: safety and economic. I was going to say reopening, but I'm listening to one of the comments. It's really economic survival. And it's a real tough challenge to balance lives and livelihoods, but we have to do that. I don't think those goals are mutually exclusive. And I think it's going to take a lot of thoughtful deliberation and analysis to come up with some answers to this. I took extensive notes, and I'm looking forward to reviewing the emails that have come in, that will continue to come in, and working with the town manager, town staff, other selectmen, and the stakeholders in the community. And a number of participants tonight offered to participate in this process. So let's move forward. I just one thought that I heard reiterated several times. Whatever we put in place, I think we need to be open to ongoing adjustment as the facts on the ground dictate. But it was a good presentation. I look forward to working with others on this very, very challenging situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Jeff, final thoughts and maybe a motion to adjourn when you're done.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for helping to organize this forum, and thanks to Jill. And again, Brad, excellent job, and Craig and Shauna and Terry, thank you very much. But most important, I guess, I'll thank the folks that weighed in and spent 2 or 3 hours with us tonight, airing your thoughts, your concerns, your very creative thinking about downtown and the beaches and how we can work to make our lives work in what is always, or has been historically certainly a really busy summer season in Chatham. So we have special daunting tasks ahead of us, challenges I should say, because of what we are and how unique we are, and the bolus of folks that seek to come to Chatham in the summer. So we've got a lot of work to do, but it's been made easier this evening because of the thoughts and the creative thinking of many of you out there, or all of you out there that spent some time with us this evening. So I do thank you very much. I look forward to reading the summaries. I did take copious notes as well. There really were some very excellent thoughts. And it is a balancing act between safety and lives and livelihood. And hopefully we'll be able to walk that line as we go forward with your support and your creative thinking. So with that being said, there's more to come, and our window's probably closing as we talk. So we've got summer coming, so we've got to get on this fairly quickly. That being said, Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Do I have a second on the move to adjourn?
Second. Peter?
Okay. Roll call. Selectman Dykens.
Aye.
Selectman Kokolas.
Aye.
Selectman Nicastro.
Aye.
Selectman Metters.
Aye.
And the chair says aye. So good night, Chatham. We're a stronger community working together, and I've appreciated this evening. Take care and be well. Thank you.